Sure.
Hello, Spider friends, and welcome to the Spider-Man Retrospective. I am...
You didn't think about this?
No, because there's a lot of nicknames that I could go with that are really bad.
I can go first.
Go, yeah, please.
I'm the finger-pointing Kyle Smid.
Okay.
The finger gun?
Yeah.
Finger gun?
The good old
I'm the symbiote slurping, Dylan Muss.
I'm the guy with the little ass trust now. We'll get to that later.
Nice.
It all makes sense, folks. If you haven't guessed what we're talking about or the title, as you know, Spider-Man Retrospective, we have been watching every episode of the animated series, the classic 1994 animated series, and we review episodes, usually 3 to 4 episodes. We get really in-depth, really deep. But on our Spider-Man Homecoming, we wanted to talk about every film that came previous.
Yep.
We're closing out. If you haven't listened to it, you're a first-time listener, we did 1 and 2 Spider-Man and the first Sam Ramis. After this, we'll be doing the Amazing Spider-Mans. But this is the closing chapter of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy. One of the most successful trilogies of all time. Came out in 2007. His last movie, the cast's last movie. I'm going to start. I want to start. Because I usually I don't, but for some reason I want to start. I watch a lot of comic movies over and over again. I haven't watched this one in a while. By a while, I probably mean like 2 years. It hasn't been like that long.
Oh, okay.
But like, that's what I mean. Like, I usually watch 1 and 2. That's a lie. I'll usually watch 1 and 2, but I'll still watch 3 because it's part of the thing.
Yeah.
For me, when I saw it when I was younger as a child, I remember it's one of those movies where we got in our theater. This was the movie they put up, Spider-Man the Grand 10. For Spider-Man 3. They put him up there, so our theater, and he's still there in our theater, so it was a big deal.
He's a little weathered, but he's still there.
Oh, yeah. Him and Kong need to get some brushing. And they need
a touch up.
Yeah, they really do. So, I remember this was one of the very first movies I went opening night. It was like that and the first Harry Potter where it's like you stood in a line to wait in the theater. So I just remember the excitement. I saw it, and at that age, I loved it. I saw it 4 times in the theater with friends.
Wow.
Loved this movie because I was younger. I don't know what age I was. Somewhere in maybe middle, like I think it was grade 7 actually.
Middle school, yeah.
Yeah, so loved it. As I got older, I watched it quite a few more times. Progressively did not like it more and more. And then as you get into like what we're into, like reviews and YouTube channels, this movie gets shit on a lot, and I kind of took that turn of like, yeah, this movie's awful, this movie's terrible, and everything like that. I think compared to the other two, this is not a good movie. It is a bad movie. But I think it's like a bad to alright movie because people talk about like the worst comic movies, but it's like there's Ghost Rider and there's Fantastic Four and like for me there's Suicide Squad. There's so many comic movies now that it's like back then when this came out, this was one of the worst because like, oh, we have such a small selection. But now watching it again, it's like, yeah, it's not the greatest. I'm not going to defend it and be like, this is why you should like it. It's just now there's been so much more that's come out. There's so much worse than this. But back then, I could see why people, if they're like maybe just adults watching, it's like, this is not the greatest. It's still fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. So it's like, it's still reviewed all right. It's like a 63. Like, I looked at other critical places. It's still like in that like kind of decent range. But for me, watch it again today. And yeah, I still think it's just kind of bad to decent, all right. The big crux of this movie is this movie could have been a trilogy of movies. There's too much stuff going on. You have just Peter's main story, just Peter Parker dealing with his famous Spider-Man. You have 3, which we're going to do 3 different love triangles in this film. You have Sandman and his plot. You have Sandman and Uncle Ben plot. You have Eddie Brock and his plot. You have the Eddie Brock and Venom plot. And to me, when I watched this, it felt like if we were expecting Daredevil Season 3, they wrote it all up and they came and say, hey, this is great, but we want you to put the entire season into 3 episodes. That's what this feels like. And there's Harry. Harry's in here. Harry, at one point, is trying to kill Peter, gets amnesia, tries to kill him again, and becomes his friend.
He is a wild storyline.
Yeah, like this movie feels like a show season condensed into 2.5 hours. So much, so many characters. Like I said, I think it's an alright man movie, but like I watched it, and you, Kyle, said it was dragging. It did drag a little bit for me. I was still enjoying it enough, but I still think it's not up to par with the other two. The other two, even though you guys didn't like 2 as much, I think you could agree this one does not flow as well as this. Like, this is really all over the place. Yeah. There's time jumps that I have no idea what's going on. Like, a little jump forward, like, the way Harry's face feels, that had to have been months, but it feel like Peter just went the next day and like, you okay, Harry? Yeah. Like, so yeah, that's me, Ryan. It's just kind of I was in the hour to watch again. I still found it enjoyable. I like the characters and the cast, so yeah, I just wanted to do that big rant because I've had a big journey with this movie over my years. I've like loved it, hate it. Now I've just like accepted it into the family. It's that weird uncle. You're like, yeah, you're a part of us, you know.
You go ahead, pal.
Yeah. So I think when I first watched this movie is when it first came out in theaters, and I think I really liked it.
That was huge in middle school. Everyone was hyped about that movie.
Yeah, I was like, because those were the first like few comic book movies that we're getting, especially that's a huge trilogy to watch.
Right.
That and X-Men. That's all we had back then. Think about that.
True.
Nowadays we have next year we have 9 comic movies. One point just had X-Men and Spider-Man. That's it.
So
Dark days.
at that time it was really good, but
yeah.
when I went to go rewatch it when I was, I don't know, probably like 4 or 5 years later after that, I didn't like it at all, and it felt like it was kind of just boring, and I like got really like disinterest and I thought like it was pretty cheesy, and then I kind of just like didn't rewatch any of the older ones as well because I just thought
they almost all be like that. Yeah.
Almost be like that, all blended in, like just being super cheesy. But now after rewatching it, like like there's a certain point, well I'll get to it, where I thought like the movie just completely switched, and I like basically turned my brain off because I was disinterested in it, and I just didn't want to watch it until like more towards the ending, where I was like, okay, now I'm more back into it, but I felt like I was taking out of it. So I still like the movie was I guess now we have so many other movies, as Travis was saying, that it's easier to compare to those now.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, back then, and I think that's why on our top 25 or
top ranking every Marvel and DC
movie,
film, yeah.
Right, I ranked it so low, but now kind of looking back now, I wish that it wasn't as bad as I thought it was, because we've had other.
Well, we'll be redoing the list. Make sure you check back in July. But
cheap plug.
So
cheap plug.
it was all right.
Well, and I hate to butt in. This is the thing where like we do review the movie here, but that's why lots of these with the episodes like it is. That's why we call it retrospective, because we all are talking about it. That's why if you review this movie back then, it's like this was one of the worst. But now it's like when you talk about this movie today, it's like there's so much to pick from. It's like it's just in that middle pack, and that's where it's like it is retrospective, because you wouldn't see that until 10 years later, and you wouldn't know going in that this is the last one too. Like we'll talk about that later. Like
True, it was supposed to be a 4th, right?
Yeah, they're supposed to be. Well, they were gonna do a 4, and the plan was after 4 they were gonna shoot 5 and 6 back to back. So their plan was a whole like another trilogy. Wow. Okay. Yeah, like they were going feed in. So like at the time, even then, as a kid, you heard rumblings about that. It was like, oh, we're gonna get more.
Because it did really well in theaters.
It was just the box office. I have told you this before on the Amazing Spider-Man cast, but to refresh, it was just that
for the fans,
creative difference.
I remember, but for the fans,
the biggest thing was creative differences.
Okay,
pretty much it was the problem, and that's what this film suffered from a lot. So I think it was this thing of, hey, it didn't work out the last time. Let's not do this, because there was this thing that they were going to use Vulture as the villain. And Anne Hathaway was going to come in and play Black Cat, but then they changed it. She was going to play, I don't know if you remember this, Vultress, like Vulture's daughter, and it was like this whole thing was
for
strange.
number 4?
Yeah, for number 4. So they just kind of decided to split ways. So it was just creative differences, and they all want, like Sam Raimi wanted to, Toby wanted to, they're all on board. So at this point, it was not looked at, oh, this is the last of this series, and it was like, oh, this is the end of the trilogy. Let's see what happens next, So what did you think about this movie, Dylan? Because other than seeing a few scenes here and there, this is really your first time watching it start to finish.
Yeah, I don't know why I never saw this movie. Like the first 2 when I was younger, obviously every kid loves Spider-Man. I really loved the first 2 movies. So I don't know why I never ended up seeing this movie. I'm still not sure. But I try. Obviously, I heard a lot of negative things about this movie from you guys and other people. But I think that's generally just what people do. They usually, when they're talking about something, it's like very polarized. Like they either loved it or they just say like, "Oh, there's this awful movie, total shit," and they just like mention a couple things that were really bad. So as with any movie, I try not to go in with a negative like mindset. I went in neutral and just said, "Okay, where is this movie going to take me?" And I would say I like it. Like,
oh really?
I would say I like this movie. I definitely see the flaws in it, and we'll talk about them. And like particularly, a couple of the villains, I guess, and it's, like what you were saying, it's just very crowded. There's a lot.
Oh yeah.
A lot of separate storylines going on with a lot of different characters, and a lot of new characters too, which is always tricky in that sense. But overall, like I still thought it was good, and obviously there's like the part when Peter kind of turns like bad and he has the like haircut and everything.
This,
But honestly, I just thought it was funny. Like I know it wasn't like good,
it
but
is,
I was like entertained watching it because like I was laughing my ass off that whole time. And there's so many movies are just like, you know, they'll have a scene, like a section like that where it's just bad and you're just like, oh god, get this off my screen. But I was watching, I'm like, this is fucking hilarious, and I think this is great.
No, and that's what I'll agree with you. And I still said like I don't think it's the greatest movie of all time. I could see how some people would say it's bad, but for me, I'm still entertained while watching it because like. Yeah, I know there's stuff that I'm laughing at that I'm not supposed to laugh at, but I'm having a good time. It's very much like when we do Netflix and fail. There's a difference where some comic movies could be do-over and some could be an I Am Wrath. Where I Am Wrath, not a masterpiece, but as you're watching it, like, this is a great time. Yeah, you're having a good time. And this movie does provide that in a way. I think it's tough because a lot of the comic fans got hurt by this, and especially like you guys have seen the animated series Venom thing. That's the biggest gripe with this movie is the Peter. It's all a symbiote thing.
We'll talk about that, but just I guess to finish off, like I think I think I need to watch the second one again already, just because I don't know, I didn't like it that much, but I feel like if I watch it a couple more times, maybe the things you're talking about with certain storylines, maybe I'll like them more. But for this movie, at least, like it was all over the place, but I at least felt like every character was. Like, didn't have that long of a break. Whereas in the second one, like, Dr. Octopus, like, he was gone for, like, a 45-minute segment. And it's like, where did that character go? In this movie, it's, like, maybe too much sometimes. Like, they're cutting scenes and you're just different characters. But I feel like every character, like, I didn't forget about any characters. Like, they were all still there.
I feel like Sandman disappears for, like, a long chunk. After he goes in that sewer, he's gone. And then he just randomly sees Venom in the shadow. He's like, got you, Spider-Man. And it's like, what? How did this...
Maybe you're right.
Yeah, I don't know.
I at least was zoned. Like, I didn't have the Kyle effect. Like, I wasn't, like, tuned out at any point. I was always, like, just watching it. And I would say I enjoyed it. Yeah, I don't think it's a great movie. I think some of these characters are really not done well at all. But overall, like, I mean, we'll talk about whether or not I'd recommend it at the end. But I would say I like this movie.
Yeah.
And I honestly, I think I enjoyed it. I enjoyed watching it more than I did the second one. First one, for me, would probably still be the top.
Still the GOAT. Yeah.
So where do we want to start?
We could just talk about the returning cast. Is there anything we want to say on them? Just like acting wise, because character stuff we'll get into like storylines. But so we got Toby's back, Kirsten Dunst's back, James Franco's back. We got Aunt May's back, Jameson's back. Cliff Robinson comes back as Uncle Ben again, which is great. This was his last film, unfortunately. So,
really?
Yeah, before he passed, which you can tell he looks a lot older in the flashbacks than he did in 2002. But yeah, so anything to say on the returning cast? I think they're all the same. I think the only one for me that stands out being bad is Kirsten Dunst, but I think that's the movie's fault because I hate Mary Jane in this movie. So I'll get in that later, but I think they're all fine. Toby still feels like Spider-Man. Like they all do a good enough job. I love James Franco in a cheesy way in this movie because he has some god awful lines, but he makes them enjoyable. Like when he's at the restaurant, says like, "How's that pie?" and he's like, "So good." And like when he turns around to Peter and it's like
that wink,
that wink, it's like
so good,
it's
over the top.
Yeah, like he kills it in like a different way. So I like all the return cast. I think they did well.
Was it a different set of writers for this movie? Because I definitely felt that there was like a dip in the quality of just the writing in general.
I think dialogue. I'll check, but I know Sam Raimi wrote them all, but maybe it's Sam Raimi and his brother. But I'll check the other ones to see if there was anybody else included while you guys go.
I think for me, I would say they pretty much all like stayed on the same like level as they have. Like I didn't dislike Mary Jane. I actually liked Harry probably maybe the most in this movie. I even though like there's some cheesiness, I think Spider-Man should have some cheesiness. Just like as an icon, he is kind of a cheesy character and he says cheesy one-liners, and that's actually like. One thing I'll say is that I wish there was more cheesy one-liners.
He quipped a little more in this, just a bit, but
I didn't see it at all. Like I feel like
that fight with Sandman he does a couple times when he's like, "Oh, you know who I am? Like I'm the sheriff in town." And at one point he's like, "Where do all these guys come from?" Like only in that moment he quipped like a little bit more.
And then who else? I think Jameson is phenomenal, just as he's always been. I guess Dr. Connors is in this one too. Very small role, but he's just as good as he was before. I guess he's the same. I don't know. How about you, Kyle?
For me, I thought they're kind of all the same. I felt like actually, why am I blanking out? Peter wasn't as good as before.
Blanking out Peter.
Yeah, I feel like maybe just because of
Is that him or what happens to him?
I think maybe more what happens to him. I think it was more of the writing of what
when he turns into Dark Peter.
Yeah,
it did have different writers. Sam Raimi and his brother wrote this. They actually had not written 1 or 2, which take that with a grain of salt because directors always have some input. Like,
right.
let's change this, but him and his brother actually wrote the screenplay for this, where opposed to 1 and 2. So
that makes sense because I noticed that in the first 15 minutes. I was like, this is just people talking to each other seems very. I feel like the first 2 movies. The dialogue flowed a lot better.
I agree. Yeah.
And obviously, like I was saying earlier, just less cheesy one-liners.
Yeah, and he's kind of a little known for that. If you watch Evil Dead, it's like a comedy horror series. So I'll agree, it's stuck up. But sorry, continue. I just wanted to point that out.
Oh yeah, no problem. But otherwise, I thought everything was pretty similar. I actually really like Eddie Brock in this.
Oh my god! What the fuck? First of all, leave him because he's not returning. Just returning people. But
just returning.
This is gonna be a mixed cast. I thought we were gonna be on the same train. A lot of things I can tell already. We're all over. God.
But other than that, I thought everyone kind of just did the same. So
yeah. Okay, let's start with Eddie Brock.
Let's talk about Eddie Brock.
I think this killed his fucking career because he did the 70 show. He did this. What else has he been in? He was in Interstellar, but I think this
Interstellar, that's it.
Yeah, I know, small little role, but I think he's bad in 2 ways. One, he's nothing like Eddie Brock, and you guys know what Eddie Brock is supposed to be like from the animated series, rugged, kind of bully sense, very imposing. This guy. He's just a pretentious little prick.
He's kind of like a weasel.
Yeah, that's not Eddie Brock. And that's why when we talk about the animated series, why people love that, because this is that's him from the comics, and Eddie and this is not. It's just Eric Foreman from the 70s show. I think he's awful. I think the dialogue he has is awful. Yeah. He created the line when he hits Mary Jane. He's like, "Oh, my spider sense is tingling," if you know what I mean. That's not Venom. Venom does not make little I think Venom and Eddie Brock all together, I think it killed his career. I really did, and I hate that, but I think he's awful in this movie.
Obviously, I know from the animated series that Eddie Brock is Venom, but when I was watching this movie, I forgot. I forgot that Eddie Brock becomes Venom, but I knew Venom was in this movie, so I don't know what, maybe I was tired or something, but it just didn't, click for me that he was going to become Venom. So I would say for the first, hour, because Venom only comes in the last 30 minutes.
Oh yeah,
but I would say for the first hour or so, I liked Eddie Brock enough. I thought he was an asshole. I thought he was kind of funny, but I thought him as Venom was awful. His voice, absolutely terrible.
His voice barely
one of the worst comic book villains I've ever seen.
Oh, he's up there. His voice barely changed. I hate that. So much his fucking face is coming off, and he has the bad, his hair still has his frosted tips, and it's his face.
Well, I hated how it kept switching back to him. I just wanted to just stay as Venom.
Yeah, and even then, I like the Venom costume enough, but I don't like that it's still, the Spider-Man suit, kind of. I wish it was just the clear, how Venom is, no webs, just clear black and everything like that. I don't even love the look. I like when it's the symbiote, and it's up, at one point when it grows to be, monster size, but... Well, let's hear from you.
Yeah, I want to know.
Liked Eddie Brock, and how do you feel about Venom as well? Those two together.
I think I like the idea of Eddie Brock and how he's kind of just pushing him, pushing against Peter Parker, and he was always getting shit on in this entire movie, right? Mm-hmm. Nothing was kind of going his way. Right. So it was kind of
he's kind of a bad guy though. He did doctor those photos, so he kind of
is. Yeah, he did kind of sleazy.
And he's kind of imposing his will on Gwen, because he's talking about proposing to her, and then the first scene we see them together, she's like, all we did was have coffee. Kind of weird.
Did he say he was proposing to her?
He said, there's a girl I'd really like to marry. And then at one point, Peter...
That's a little different than saying he's going to propose to her.
But, okay, but still, they've had coffee together. That's it.
No, that's... Yeah,
I've never had coffee with a girl and been like... That's it. Here we go.
Well, when it's Gwen Stacy.
Yeah, I know it's Gwen Stacy. Yeah, continue. Brock love.
I just enjoyed.
I know. I'm just bugging you.
Enjoyed him, but I get what you guys are saying.
How about Venom? What do you think of Venom?
I like the costume of Venom. I thought it was pretty scary, to be honest.
I think the face. I just don't like the skin. It's still the suit. That's my problem.
Yeah, but I don't like it when he comes out of the face, and then he's got his rotten teeth as well too, and
he has fangs.
His fangs and his.
Well, the weird thing is, if you think about Venom, cartoon animated and comic books, he has those big teeth, but it's when he's Venom. He doesn't have those teeth as Eddie Brock. When he switches back to Eddie Brock, he's just normal looking guy.
He almost looks like Green Goblin from Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah,
That's where they like took that idea from.
I would pay to see that movie, like Batman v Superman, like Spider-Man 3 Venom versus Amazing Spider-Man 2 Goblin. I would pay to see that. That'd be so good.
But otherwise, like I guess you guys brought up some pretty good points as well too that I kind of forgot while I was watching
Because you zoned out.
Because I zoned out. Because at one point in the movie, he's taking photos of Gwen Stacy like falling, but this is before like they announced this is Gwen or whatever, and that she's hanging off from the building, and he's taking photos like, oh, that's my girlfriend, and then goes back to like
he called her
taking
girlfriend.
photos.
Yeah.
And then I guess her dad, which
Lieutenant.
I think is way too old to be her father.
Well, you know that. Well,
Yeah,
because you think
I
of
didn't think about
Amazing
that.
Spider-Man. He's Captain Stacy. He's the same in Amazing Spider-Man: The Dead That Dies. That's who he's playing. James Cromwell, who's an amazing actor, is in this for like 3 scenes, and it's like, what the fuck?
He's just way too old.
I forgot about that character.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, but yeah, otherwise, that's where that scene where comes when he says, "Oh, Brock, if we've only been on one coffee date." And it's like, wait, what? So now, like, I thought you were girlfriend, boyfriend. Now, like,
well, it's
I
really
can see
because
it.
later
That's
on when
totally
he's just watching her and Peter.
the character of Eddie would do though, right? Like just lie about that. Like I don't know, it makes sense, kind of.
True, but then like the rest of it, like I would have rather them take the path of them being together to give him some weight, because it seems like then everything in his life is so superficial that like when he gets screwed over, it's like, well, because you were lying. When he loses this girl, it's like, well, you weren't really dating. You know, like I wanted one thing where, remember, this is a bad comparison, but animated series, remember we got all these flashbacks for a whole entire season, like how Eddie got screwed over, where this felt like 13 Reasons level of like, oh, Eddie Brock's gonna make a tape for Peter Parker.
Yeah, obviously that's like a TV show. There's more episodes, but even then, he's a very minor character. But it still, felt like a better change. And in this movie, he goes to the church, he does the thing, and he's like, "Can you kill Peter Parker?"
God, please.
I was like, "What the fuck? Like, you want to kill this guy? Like that's a little."
Peter Parker has ruined your life.
That's a little over the top.
I know. Oh,
I guess maybe I was more like thinking about when I looked at Eddie Brock as more from the animated series and not. I wasn't really paying attention to
oh, Jesus.
I'm trying to think about what I thought about his Venom costume. I feel like we barely got to see it, right?
Yeah.
I feel like you don't get any a shot where you can just look at him for like 5 seconds.
He's jumping around a lot.
Quick. Yeah. Oh, well, definitely a lot
sound
of weird. They're not really growls. They're more just like annoying noises.
Yeah.
The one thing I liked about Venom was I thought it was cool when Spidey like made that little cage of like poles and started bashing them.
I like the way he defeats them.
Because I forgot that that's Venom's weakness too, and so like the flashback to the bell, and then when he sets up that cage and starts smashing it, I thought that was really good. I liked that part. But everything else about him,
even with the bell and the clock tower, I thought it was really cool when you first see like Venom, like kind of like ghost Venom, like pop out of Peter and then back in. I thought it was really well. Just to think about the CGI at that point in time as well too, like that's really good.
The only thing I didn't like about Venom so much in this movie is that I think one of the parts of Venom is that he should be kind of scary, but in like in like kind of like a creepy way. Like you should feel unsettled when you know what's going on or when you see him and stuff like that.
They tried that.
In this movie, they go with like a jump scare at one point, and then they try it with music. Like they tried, but it didn't work for me. And maybe it's because he was like the second or third villain in this movie, and he didn't have as much time, and he was only in the last half an hour. Maybe I don't know. Like his scariness didn't work for me.
Well, it's funny you bring that because there's 2 things I can add to that. One, Sam Raimi originally did not want Venom in this movie. I have in the trivia notes. He was not a fan of the character, but when the producers said that they should include him because Venom has a huge following.
The character generally, or like in
the he just was not a Venom fan. Okay. Yeah, he was just not a Venom fan. Okay. He said he didn't like that he lacked humanity. And as you can see from this trilogy, which we're getting to Sandman, every villain in this trilogy is like a tragic villain, right? They have something that went wrong. Where Venom, I think his problem was he's just pure evil. I didn't want that. He said that he eventually grew to appreciate it, but he still put the villain in there. I wouldn't say maybe against his will, but still, it wasn't his initial idea, right? So I think there's that.
That definitely comes across in the movie.
Yeah, I think there's that he's kind of tacked on of like, oh, this is great to do a poster. Because after Spider-Man 2, that hype was so big for fans to hear that Venom were going to be in the movie, which Venom's a lot of people's favorite villain just in general. People were so excited. They used him a lot in trailers, a lot in posters. And the thing about when we brought the horror, which is 2 things that's surprising. One, we talk about how 1 and 2 had those moments. Like 2 with Doc Ock when he was in the table.
Right.
With he was getting all the people and like the fingernails. And with Green Goblin, like a lot of that had horror moments. And he's a famous horror director. And it's funny that with the Venom stuff, it didn't really hit. Like, it felt like a non-horror director trying to do that, you know? So it felt like he should have been able to do that. And I just wonder
probably
if it's
comes
just
down to the
lack
fact
of...
that he didn't care about the character or didn't want the character.
Yeah, so it is funny that you brought that up. Do we have anything... I know we're going to talk more about Venom and Brock when we get our notes, but we have anything superficial to bring up to him, or we want to talk about...
I think that was everything I had to say about Venom.
Let's talk about the man who's coarse and rough, Sandman. Flint Marko.
Oh, actually, I have one more Venom quote I just found. It's a good old quote. I like being bad. It makes me happy.
I know, it's so... I'm sorry, guy. I cannot get on your butt. I think he is. Like, we did a top 10 worst villains. I think he's in that top 10. I hate him. I hate him so much. I feel bad. I like Topher Grace from 70 Show, but... Sandman. Yeah. What do you guys think about, I guess, the actor?
Flint Marko.
Yeah, Flint Marko.
I think at one point at the beginning when he's first getting his powers and then he's trying to get that locket. I think the music for that and that kind of whole setup was just amazing.
I like the whole scene of him
really
turning into
Sandman. How he's like forming and he kind of breaks and he forms.
It was very dramatic, and I think that I really like that about that. And it was like one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie.
I think that's something they did really well with that character overall. Is obviously by the end of the movie he's like a gigantic being. I think they did a good job of like showing that evolution of him starting as like obviously a guy who's just realizing he's the sand creature and then turning his arm into like a giant sand like punching bag kind of thing, and I feel like that evolution like made sense throughout the movie, and obviously like he is, I guess you would say, the main villain of this movie, and so he has a lot of time dedicated to that.
I don't think there is a main villain of this movie, to be honest. I feel like Harry's the main villain for the first act, the second act Sandman, and the third act's Venom, because I feel like even Sandman in the final battle takes a big back seat, and then randomly he just pops up and makes his emotional speech, and it's like, which I'll get into later, but like I think he has some of the best action scenes in this movie. I like the way Sandman, his effects are good. I like the
special effects are very good.
Yeah, I really like the actor. I think he played him well, but this is a case where I brought up earlier, I would have much enjoyed just the Spider-Man and Sandman movie solely. You know, I would have much rather, we'll get into it later, but like the Harry stuff should have been its own movie. I feel like Venom should have been its own movie. That's my problem with Sandman. I feel like they did good for the time he was there, but I want a lot more. So at the end when he makes his speech, which I'll just jump to, when he's just like, I didn't want to do any of this. This isn't what I like wanted to do. I wasn't meant for this. But it's like, Venom comes to you and like, hey, you want to kill Spider-Man? You know, he screwed your daughter over. And it's like, in a matter of like an hour, he's like, oh, I didn't want to do this. And he destroys like a bunch of New York. Like we see news reels of him like flipping cars, and then all of a sudden it felt like just because Venom and him lost or they got the upper hand, he's like, oh, I didn't want to do this. Like that felt completely
like his
flat
morals
for me.
were quite confused throughout this movie. Like at first he just is trying to get some money so that his daughter can have her surgery or whatever it is, and I thought that was okay, but then I didn't really understand why he wanted to kill Spider-Man. But I guess I kind of understand. I guess he like lost him to him in a fight. It's really weird.
But Spider-Man doesn't know about his daughter. That's the whole thing. When he's like, if he would have been like, oh, I'm just doing this for my daughter, and then Spider-Man stop him. That's your classic villain of like, hey, I'm trying to do good for my daughter, but this guy's trying to stop me, and he knows that. Where Spider-Man's just trying to stop a guy robbing a bank, like, and he just treats it as like he's just
like
been
another like villain.
Yeah, and he's just taking it so personal, and that's where I feel like even though I don't like love Doc Ock in number 2. I feel the personal connection there. Obviously, with Green Goblin, we do. This, I don't at all. And they really try to hamstring the personal connection by bringing in Uncle Ben subplot, which we'll get into. But I hate that subplot. It's very much, if you guys have seen Scream 3, there's a moment where Jamie Kennedy explains, in the third movie, in a trilogy, it always has to bring something up that connects to all the other movies, and it was always there, but you didn't know about it. And this was this moment where it was like, this doesn't work for me at all or fit. And I even remember even being younger though and loving the movie that I didn't like that because it takes away Peter's guilt. His making the mistake is completely gone now because this Uncle Ben would have died no matter what because this guy accidentally shot a gun, you know? Yeah. So it's like the moral lesson's kind of gone.
I think, there's a couple examples of that where the plot, like, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense.
No.
Like, it seems like they didn't put a whole lot of thought, and that's the other thing with like Venom too. Like the meteor just randomly crashes like next to him. Like it's just like, is that the best you guys like could have come up with? Like I think there's something better you could have done.
In the original script, it was supposed to be like the animated series. I have that also in the trivia, where it was supposed to be the plane crash and everything, which is super strange because they set up the astronaut in the second one. That the guy John Jameson, who's marrying MJ, that's in the comics and the animated series who crash landed is Jameson's son. And it's like you had set that up already. Like we know this character, show him die, but like you said, like for them just to be chilling, making out, and then just this mini asteroid, this like fart asteroid land. Nobody else.
The time like they start making out, this asteroid just comes down, smashing the ground.
Quietest asteroid I've ever heard. No other
super quiet. It's like 10 feet away from him.
No scientists other than Kirk Connors know about this. You know, like this is not the days when Nick Fury could come in and be like, "Hey, what's going on here?" So I agree. There's a lot of stuff that just happens in this. Movie.
That's kind of just like Sandman. Like I feel like they sort of go in his story. Like there's a little bit more care there than the Venom thing, but I still felt like I'm like that kind of works, but I didn't feel like any of it was really that gripping. Like it was I kind of had to make some assumptions. Yeah. But I would say I like the character overall just because I really did like his action scenes, and we talked about the CGI and stuff. Like I thought he was really good in that regard. And he wasn't the worst villain. Like he did have some backstory, and like he did have some morals for like why he was trying to kill Spider-Man for a bit. It just wasn't great.
I think he's kind of like we talked about before, and like luckily films we've seen recently with Marvel are getting better. But some of Marvel's like the MCU villains, where it's like they give you enough, but there's a lot lacking. And that's what he feels like. He feels like that MCU kind of like always there. He's opposing. He drops a couple lines of dialogue of like, "Oh, this is why you should feel for me." But it's like, really, like, there's not much to it, you know? Like, I feel sorry for your daughter, but that didn't give me an excuse to, like, kill. Even if he didn't kill any people, he does, like, thousands of dollars of property damage and, like, scares, like, these children. Like, doesn't really matter. You should still go to prison. But no, he just evaporates into the fucking wind. And it's like, cool, I guess he's a free man. It is a note that he's the only Spider-Man villain not to die or go to prison in a Spider-Man movie, though. He just goes, Cool. Kyle, do you have any thoughts on Sandman?
I liked him overall. I think they set him up pretty decently at the beginning. And obviously we don't really see him more in the middle and kind of more towards the end when they kind of team up. When he teams up with Venom, which was just kind of weird of why I guess he wants to kill Spider-Man. I think if they, at the end of the movie, their end dialogue, if they did say like, "Hey, this is like why I'm doing all of this for my daughter," just to like.
He does say that, but it's still like Peter should still be like, "What about your daughter?" Like,
kind of more explain about that. And then if they would have just taken the whole Uncle Ben thing out, I think that would have been a lot more gripping. Because otherwise, it's just a lot of like things going on with like just that specific like Peter and Sandman like storyline, and they're like interconnected, and I feel like they didn't need to be that interlink.
You could have used that Uncle Ben time to flesh him out more and give him more character stuff, but it's just like the Uncle Ben thing where for me it felt completely in the second one when he tells Aunt May that feel like that storyline's done. We've completed it. We've completed the arc of he feels guilty. He's making a change of life, and he's told Aunt May, perfect. And that's another problem again with Mary Jane where it feels like Uncle Ben feel like we had finished that subplot, and it's like, no, he's back. Like, the real killer's here, and it's like, oh, like, he's already a villain. We don't need to, like, that extra motivation.
I feel like they just wanted to add, like, an extra twist of, like, oh, like,
it's
this
personal
is...
this time.
Yeah, like, this is one up it, because, like, last time we didn't do it. And I feel like that's what this movie was lacking, is just kind of just more simplicity than just, like, this complicated, all these plot lines. Like, I think it's good overall, like, I see what they're trying to go with all of this, but like it was just too much all in just one film.
They didn't perfect the landing.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the original Gwen Stacy, Bryce Dallas Howard, Jurassic World fame. If you didn't know that, she's in that.
She's in Black Mirror.
Black Mirror episode.
She's a great Black Mirror episode. She's
social media episode.
Yeah, she's daughter of a very famous Hollywood director. What do you guys think about the original Gwen Stacy? How does it compare to Emma Stone?
She's no Emma Stone.
No, she's no Emma Stone. But I think the script doesn't let her get to be Emma Stone. I'm not saying she would have been as good as Gwen Stacy or Emma Stone, but she's a very one-note character. She's
Yeah.
just a plot device for Mary Jane to get jealous.
Yeah.
She's a part of one of the many love triangles.
Mhm.
Like, if you haven't seen this movie, which I don't know why, but there's a love triangle between Peter, her, and Brock.
Yeah.
Peter, her, and MJ. Peter, MJ, and Harry. There's literally 3 fucking love triangles in one movie, and especially when I'll save for after, but like, no, especially this is my point about Uncle Ben. When Spider-Man 2 feels completely like, oh, we finally closed the circle on Mary Jane and Spider-Man. For me, my biggest problem is this movie, they should just be happy and dealing with villains coming after them. There shouldn't have been, we still love each other, but there's this back and forth. It should have just, when we gave Amazing Spider-Man 2, sorry, minor spoilers, but we gave it shit for that too, where it's like, it felt like Amazing Spider-Man 1. Okay.
Yeah.
Garfield and Stone, they're together. Let's go to Amazing Spider-Man 2. And then the beginning of the movie, they break up. It's like, but we spent a whole
What's
movie.
the purpose of that?
Yeah, and that's what this felt like again. This feels very similar to Amazing Spider-Man 2, where it's like, I felt like MJ and Peter were going to be happily ever after. And then right away, it's already like maybe 20 minutes, and then they have problems. And I just wish if you took out all their problems, we'd have so much more time if it's just like they love each other. But they had to do these love triangles and this.
Or at least they cut down the movie quite a bit as well too.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, you didn't have to add stuff. It would just be shorter, and you had to add in. For me, I did not like the complex of like. Actually, I'll say that because that's later on. But yeah, Gwen, she's fine in this movie. You know, not memorable.
Yeah, well, I agree with you guys. I don't think they really like needed to have. Obviously, there is like too many storylines already going on. The one thing I liked, I like how when she gave like Spider-Man the kiss, it was like the same as the MJ one. So I thought that was cool from like a movie standpoint.
I do, and I have funny like nitpicky notes which we'll get into later, which is like stuff where it's like this doesn't.
I do think though it's pretty weird when Peter is having dinner with MJ and she like walks in and is talking to him, which is fine, but then she has like her hand like on his shoulder and she's like really close to him. It's like, can you not like this? You know that this is his like girlfriend or something, don't you? Like, why are you being so hands on? This
and
is
the
really
way
weird.
Toby looks in that scene looks like he's hiding something, so it's like
it totally does.
Yeah, like he looks
totally
completely
suspicious.
guilty. He looks like
So
that
suspect.
friend of yours that's like cheating on somebody, and they're like, "Oh yeah, like I don't know anything." Like he like he's him on the shoulder. And he's just like it's just like he acts so strange. And then when she leaves, he's just like bubbly and happy. Like it's a very strange scene. Like she like, and that's the thing. It seems like they couldn't commit with her. That like, I would have been rather just be like, yeah, she's trying to go after Peter. She doesn't care about MJ. But then like, there's a scene later on where she totally regrets everything she did, and then you don't see the rest of the movie until a funeral, which we'll get into later. But like,
she didn't really need to be in this movie.
No.
But I like the actress enough that I didn't think it was like a bad character. It was just like, I don't really need her.
She was there.
One thing I'll say in that scene when he's gonna propose, I really like how when he's like waving at her and then they like bring the champagne out and then that happens like 2 or 3
that's
times.
Bruce Campbell again. You remember?
I actually like I didn't recognize him. I was like, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be surprised if it was that guy.
Yeah, it's the wrestling announcer from the first one and the theater guy from the second one. So Bruce Campbell appears again. Yeah, and this is I think his best one.
Does he have another thing in this movie?
No, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, this is his best one, especially too like when he waits at one point and they're coming and he gets really mad at the waiter. He's like he claps really loud. He's like getting mad at them for coming, and it's like it's that really good. And like I like the pecker line and everything.
Yeah, I thought that was
I like you.
I think I like that scene because of like that guy and not necessarily I guess like Gwen's thing. But yeah, she was just all right.
Yeah.
Among many other things in the movie, it's just like it was okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny that you guys kind of like the kissing because at that point
I didn't say that. That was Dylan.
Really?
I got stuff to say about it later.
I didn't like it at all, and I feel like Gwen was very a one note character, and it was. I think it's cool for me because we've been watching a lot of the animated series, and to see like all these characters that we know from that into this movie and looking at it that way, I think that's why.
But Gwen's on in the animated series.
Oh, that's
right, Felicia. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And
I take that
Hathaway
back.
was gonna play Spider-Man 4 until he turned into Vulture.
Gwen might show up in the animated show at some
so
point.
I'll take
Maybe,
that.
maybe
I
not.
wouldn't be
We'll
surprised.
see.
It's
We'll
just
see.
for me. I find it's cool like to know like who these characters are, and so I get pretty pumped. So it's like, oh sweet, like I know who like these names are because when I was first watching it, like no idea.
She could have had any other name.
She could have
There's something to base it off of, where it's
Yeah.
like, oh, I know what this interpretation of a character is. What is this one? And,
exactly. So I don't know. She didn't really, I guess, do much, but other than just like screw up everyone else's lives.
Yeah.
True. Good point.
Wow.
She's a new
Sucks to suck, Gwen Stacy.
Really though.
Yeah. I think that's it for like The rest are all like minor. Is there any other big main people? Or
Um,
are they gonna just come up and throw notes?
Nah.
Yeah.
Stan Lee cameo.
Yeah. Well, I got that. That's coming up. I think it's his best one because
Well,
he gets some lines at least, so that's
yeah.
good. But
I'll say that Jameson always deserves another shout out. He's great in this movie. I love the scene when he's like, I guess his assistant's like, you need to take your pills, and he goes to reach one, and then like she buzzes him again. Like,
not that one.
I thought he was hilarious in this movie.
Just so quiet. Thanks.
Make sure you drink some water.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that guy J.K. Simmons, right? That's his name.
Yeah.
I think he is Jameson.
It's gonna be tough. I feel bad for whoever steps in that guy's shoes ever. That's a tough one. I got some notes here for just most of the movie. Big movie begins with narration as usual, so that was good. This one's a bit more upbeat. He's like, "Oh, happy life, everything."
Yeah, it was very positive at the start.
I got the girl of my dreams and everything like that. Yeah. It starts with them really showing that New York loves Spider-Man now opposed to the other movies. Even though in this timeline, he's still known as the murderer of Harry or Norman Osborn, so I guess New York's just forgiven them. Like, we'll give him one, What I wanted to bring up as my first, lots of these notes, I have some film critique notes, but a lot of these are funny ones. When he's in his class, when we get introduced to Gwen, when she answers a question right, and she, looks back
and she, pops off a little bit.
Yeah. He's getting bullied in a college, it was like them trying to really emphasize again that he's still a nerd, but it felt out of place because all these people look like they're 30 and older. I'm sure it might happen.
Yeah, that guy who we looked back at maybe even more than 30. He could be 40.
Yeah.
And
it's so sad they're spitballing him and shining a light in his eyes, and it's like, at that point, if you're that age, just dude, what the fuck's wrong with you? I'm not a kid where I'm not gonna be like, oh, I can't tell Connors, you know? So I thought that was funny. I got a good laugh about that.
Quick note, just going back to that Spidey celebration ceremony. I love how the band was playing the Spidey song. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. See, then I'll get into that right now. I have most of my notes. I like the actual kiss as far as
I like it that's a callback.
I like it's a callback, and I like that it's a tongue-in-cheek thing for MJ, because at that point, to me, and I'll get into MJ throughout, I feel like MJ is really needy. I feel like she's exactly where we are in the animated series right now, where it's just, woe is me, everything's Peter's fault. This is the only part where it's okay, Peter really screwed up here. My thing is when he swings in, he makes a bad judgment call, lets her kiss or whatever, and I get why he's doing it, showing it's Spider-Man's getting to his head. My thing is, why is everyone in the crowd so violently yelling, kiss him! Kiss him! Why is this a thing? Why do people need to see Spider-Man making out with a chick? Everyone is so vehement about it. They need to see this. It just feels like there are a bunch of, horny people in the crowd. It caught me off guard where they're, fists in the air. Why? This is very strange. I remember when I saw it the first time, that kid got the biggest laugh in the theater when he was like, no, Spider-Man, no! And he covered his eyes when he did it. That was still great. I still laughed at that. But I was just caught me off guard when the whole crowd was just, demanding them do it. And then it's just, it was strange. And the other thing that's strange is they don't really confirm what the fuck Gwen Stacy does. She goes to school, but she's also doing this modeling gig, but then she's also giving Spider-Man the key to the fucking city.
Well, that was because she was the one that he saved.
But, usually you'll have her do a speech, and the mayor will come and say, oh, this is why, and the mayor gives the key. She's a part of the celebration. She doesn't give the fucking keynote speech. That was really strange. And we never found out what she actually does with her life.
I was gonna give that a pass. Because,
I'm not!
Her dad is the chief or whatever.
Captain.
The captain? Mm-hmm. And it's her dad's the captain, and I think they explain that in the speech as well, too.
And oh, fine, Captain Stacy's daughter did the speech.
She goes to school, and maybe on the side does some modeling, and then she dates boys. That's what she does.
Yeah,
that's enough. That's a life. That's
I'm pretty sure
that will take up most of your day.
Oh, she just picked up this modeling gig.
She did. We saw that. That's when the billing class.
I thought it was pretty funny. When he was like, "Oh yeah, just work it." The photocopier.
That's your secret. No, he said, "I got a big secret. It's what's on my photocopier."
Yeah.
That felt like animated Spider-Man series. That line, that felt like Morbius pre-Living Vampire.
That scene was funny. I don't understand the mechanics of how that crane was going so ham on that building, and how they couldn't stop it. That was violent, man.
I don't understand this emergency stop button that didn't work, and the crane was
Wasn't it sparking the
yeah.
emergency? It was what the fuck was this guy doing? Because this was pre-Sandman, right?
I don't think Sandman had nothing to do with the crane.
So New York's just fucking up, I think, right?
That's what I don't understand.
No, I wouldn't be surprised if there was that first fight scene in like the bank car.
No, it wasn't. That's when he got the key to the city, and then that's when he fucked off because they're like the police alarms, and then he went. So I think it was just
before.
It was just the crane.
MJ,
another Spider-Man crane moment.
MJ and Peter get into a fight, and then like they kind of like
no, they don't get in a fight. She's a bitch to him for no reason. He doesn't know that she got fired. She constantly like just like hints around it. First second she sees Harry, yeah, they let me go. Fuck you. Fuck her so much in this movie. I'm sorry, I'm going so out of order. When he says, hey, beautiful, and he looks for her phone, and she just steps out of frame. Sorry, what a cunt. What? I'm dropping it. I hated her in this movie. Everything loving about her, like, he's so nice. He has no idea. This is before he kissed, like, Gwen and everything. This is before it really went to his head. Like, he said, hey, beautiful. He's being so nice. And he's just like, you know what? Screw those reviews. You're going to kill it tonight. Like, you're going to show them. Like, he's so
I really like that.
I'm going to have so much flack in the comments. I don't care.
I love when he was, she was like, oh, no one applauded. And he's like, oh, of course there were. He was telling her, like, about the acoustics of the room and why he couldn't. Like, I thought that was great. Like, classic Peter Parker nerd stuff.
I like when he's singing along. When she's singing, he's like...
and then Harry's just looking down at him like, you fucker.
I love that moment when they go up and it's like nice romantic music and they pan up and it's like creepy and he's just like, I'm gonna get you. There's so much, I wish so much, I like Sandman, Venom's not good. I wish so much this movie was just about Harry being the villain. I honestly do, because I feel like they steamroll so much. Like, they has that talk with Aunt May and then right away he just gets picked up from the bike. And the amnesia thing is just to, like, make it so Harry...
The amnesia thing is another one of those story moments where it's, like, kind of lazy. Like, okay, now he remembers, and now it just... I don't know.
I just feel like when we were talking about Uncle Ben and the ties and being personal, Harry, him becoming a villain has been a build-up for the whole two movies. Like, the Spider-Man 1 and 2 is all about him getting to Spider-Man 2 and finding that layer and being like, I'm going to kill Peter Parker because he killed my dad. I feel like he's the perfect villain because you already have that personal connection built in. And for some reason, they just decided to... And this was even before Venom. They already had Sandman as the main villain. So for me, Harry was never the main villain. And to me, when I saw Spider-Man 2 for the first time, I thought that was the obvious, like... I thought he was going to be a new Green Goblin or a Hobgoblin or there's Proto-Goblin. Like, I thought he was going to be something, not fucking big white ski-board Goblin. Like, I just don't get it, and I just feel like...
Snowboarder Goblin for people who don't know what big white is.
Yeah, sorry, like, I just felt...
In the credits, he was New Goblin.
New Goblin, yeah. So, like, I just felt like... So much build-up, 2 movies, 4 hours worth, and that was the payoff we got. And I was really disappointed because I really like James Franco's Harry in the series. Yeah. I like their relationship. Yeah. It's one of the best relationships I think in comic book movies as far as friends. And it just thrown to the... It's not even the side. Like, I feel like Sandman and Eddie, I feel like he's below it. Like, it really frustrated me. But I liked the initial setup, and I liked when Peter saw him outside the thing, and he tried to be like, hey, let's talk. Like, I'm really sorry. You don't understand. Like, I liked it. And then once he got amnesia... It was like, oof, that really took a dive. What can I ask you? What was the moment you said the movie turned for you?
I think it was after that kiss because I hated it. You know what?
You really hated this kiss.
You know, I was like, I just didn't like the kiss, but I think I was just so invested into like Peter or I guess Spider-Man, and like like he's doing so well, like he's trying to like he wants to marry MJ, and it's like then why would you kiss? I know like you're Spider-Man and everything's get to your head, but like at one point you'd be like. Okay, like... It
felt like an obvious, like, we need them to fight. Oh, let's have Peter. Because up to that point, Peter isn't acting like that at all. He's not acting that selfish. This is the first time we're seeing him make her shows. Yeah. And he's happy. He's making
like,
school.
Clueless.
Yeah, he's going to school. But this just felt like, oh, I'm going to kiss her in front of everybody. And it's just like... And even at dinner, like we talked about, he's so nonchalant about it. It just felt like... I'll agree with you there. That was thrown in to be like, oh, they need to fight now. So let's...
And I feel like it was after that, and it kind of just went... to like this bland like portion until more like basically when Venom came in.
That's like an hour and a half.
I know, that's why like, I felt like this movie dragged for me because that's how long it took like just to get to move on. Because I felt like there's all these plot twists and blah 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 happening, and I just like it's like there's so much going on that I've just zoned out.
Yeah,
basically.
I'll say in terms of the Harry storyline, I didn't love the Goblin. He didn't look that cool. He wasn't that cool.
Don't you hate how they show you the badass like silver gold mask
Yeah.
when they're like Green Goblin this and then
they
they're like
show
the ski mask.
They even show like cooler like flyers and stuff too.
Yeah, and they're like he has the lamest. He just has a snowboard.
It was cool at the time.
The only thing that's cool is his fucking green sword. I love that. That's badass.
Green sword's pretty awesome.
Every time he's hitting stuff, it's like green sparks. That was cool, but the rest of it, his mask was lame.
And his first fight with I guess it wasn't even Spidey, it was just straight up Peter. I didn't like the special effects in that scene. I thought the scene looked real, like it didn't
really
fit
good,
at all.
yeah.
Considering how good the Sandman CGI was, and even like Venom, looked like he fit really well.
But that's why I bring it up is because I talked about this in Spider-Man 2. A lot of the CGI in that scene is in with their masks off. I think that's the problem, is you can't hide it. So when they do a close-up on Tobey, you can completely see it's like video game cutscene Tobey. It's not him. Where with the Spider-Man, he can look a little fake. I think that's a problem, because right away Franco takes off his mask too. He's just like, you knew this was coming, Peter.
Yeah.
And his mask is just off. These people are fighting in the middle of fucking New York, and Harry's like, I'm just gonna just throw myself out there. There's no cops or anything. They're in all these alleyways, but...
No, the one thing I did like about that scene was he sends out those like little boomerang things, and then it's like pretty much like a callback to how Norman calls the flyer and then eventually kills him. It's like the same sort of scene, I guess, like that. They kind of
and Peter says, "No, not these things again." When he throws out the knife boomerangs. Yeah. So that scene I was gonna ask, even though there's two things I was gonna ask. One, I feel like he's still, I don't know, kind of actively trying to kill Harry in that scene, because he literally takes when he whips it and he throws it back, and like we see an explosion. For some reason, Harry just throwing his arms up protects him from the blast. That's all right.
That doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
But like he still threw an explosion, and I feel like okay, he did that thing to like make him like a kind of a trap, but like I feel like at the speed he was going in, the strength of Spider-Man's web, like there's a chance he could have decapitated Harry. I just felt like the way he was acting was, I don't really want to hurt him, but his actions felt very violent. I'm not talking about later on when he was trying to. This felt very careless.
Well, he almost does kill him, or at least
appears
so.
Which I want to ask you, what do you think his story was when he took Harry to the hospital? His clothes are ripped up. He's in this fucking like proto armor suit. What is his story?
We got into a car accident.
Where's the car?
It was a hit and run. But he does say it was a hit and run.
See, that would have been... He didn't say that, though.
Yeah, he did.
When did he?
In the James Franco wakes up, and he's like, do you remember? Oh, the doctor said I was in a hit and run.
Oh, I've never caught that. Are you sure you're not lying to me? I'm going to check again tonight.
I don't know if he actually says that.
I don't think he's...
I'm pretty sure it's a hit and run.
But okay, let's just say he didn't. Let's just say he didn't for fun, because... We majority 2-1.
Yeah.
What would he tell him?
Well, here's the thing. I could see it as like Spider-Man could have called it in and said, "Hey, there's this guy here. Pick him up," and just got the ambulance to pick him up. I don't know.
But Peter said with his ripped knife. Sure, he has a stab wound. Like, I like the ring. When the ring's in the air, that was cool. They used that for the trailer. That was a little fun thing. But I just want to bring that up because
I think you remember that was in the trailer.
Oh yeah,
I don't think I can remember a trailer of any movie I've seen.
That was in the trailer, and the Venom jump scare was in a trailer. That moment when he was looking around, I think that's how a trailer ended. It ended when him picking up by head and it cut. I was like, I want to see more Venom.
Oh, I want to see this movie. Yeah.
One line I really liked is when Peter went to the back of the stage to see MJ after the play, and he's like, "Oh, you got my flowers," and MJ's, "Yeah, and I got Harry's too." And it's like this massive thing. Which that was the thing to me. It didn't really establish until the middle of the movie where Harry and MJ were at, because it felt like she knew there was a rift between them, but that still kind of felt like her and Harry were maybe talking, and that's why I meant, like, I'm going to be biased to the whole cast, but that's why I really wish Harry was the main villain, because I would have liked to have seen, is he still talking with MJ? Is he still friendly with her and not Peter? But, like, it's kind of like what you were saying earlier, there's stuff that you kind of just have to assume or guess for yourself, and I still don't understand what was going on there until he gets amnesia and everyone's just like, oh, it's like Mary Jane's like, oh, you guys seem good now. It's like, yeah, he had a fucking car accident. He doesn't remember anything. Like, that seems strange for you to say, oh, you guys are good now. You hashed out your problems. He doesn't even remember his problems. Like, it just seems very strange. Like,
well, and that's, what we talked about before, too. Like, they easily could have just cut one character or even just take out, like, one of the love triangles, take out some storyline, and you could have answered all these questions in like, ample time, I suppose.
Do you guys feel like them making it online in the web was a smart idea? I get it from a movie, it looks good, but it just takes one person to walk up and you know who Spider-Man is.
Not the greatest idea.
No.
The greatest idea, but I think it was cute.
Yeah, I know. It's that movie magic.
I like his bike.
His little scooter right away.
Yeah. One thing is a comedy note when we were talking about Flip Marco when he breaks into his house with his daughter and his wife or ex-wife, we presume. He's going in the kitchen. He finds some bread.
Just rips the bread.
Just rips the bread. He takes
and wakes up a whole household. Everyone comes downstairs, turns the lights on.
He's such a fucking savage. You can't use it. He's in a kitchen. There's nice everywhere, but you like it. And it's just like, okay, you fucking. Oh yeah, we gotta show he's an ex-convict. He can't use a fucking knife. Like I don't know. It just stuck out. Like there's little moments of that movie where it really stuck out. I was like, okay, like, and this was the moment where they try to make him like a tragic villain. And I didn't like because like Green Goblin's kind of a tragic villain. Doc Ock's a villain. And that's where I like Venom or Harry. Harry has personal ties, or Venom. It's like, okay, he's just bad.
Mm-hmm.
With this, it's like I felt like we've already seen it done twice better between Doc Ock and Green Goblin.
Good point. Yeah.
So
one little nitpicky thing is when
one.
well, there's a couple I guess, but we'll start with one. This is when Harry. I guess this is when Harry and Peter are fighting. Yeah. Okay. So it's when Harry's like set up and he's like waiting for
The second time, right?
Spidey to come get him. Yeah, and then they have like that fight scene, and they get knocked through the like mirror into that like secret room.
Yeah. Norman's lair.
Yeah. And like Peter throws a bomb at him, and it blows up right next to his face. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then we see later that same bomb kills Venom in like one explosion and just completely evaporates him. So how did that bomb not just destroy Harry and leave nothing but a single piece of ash left?
Well, you gotta think back to the first one.
Yeah.
Remember we talked about this when Green Goblin throws that bomb at Peter. It gets that cool slow motion. It bounces. It explodes right in his face and it tears his mask apart, makes him bloody. But it just, it's these levels of like it just hurts Peter, takes Harry's face off, and then kills Venom. So it's like these bombs. Maybe it's a charging. You gotta.
They're not like they don't.
We should
the
actually
same
go back.
ratios
We should go back and see how long they hold it before they throw. Because maybe the longer you hold it.
But I swear it hit like the wall right like the thing the wall he was leaning against.
No, it hits right before, and then it like explodes.
Yeah.
So really, Peter should have that exact same face throughout the whole trilogy, but he doesn't.
Here's my theory for why it kills Venom: is that the symbiote maybe has a reaction to the bomb, and that's why it gets destroyed.
Fire.
Because it's from space, right?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So that's.
Well, I mean Eddie Brock too. He's also evaporated.
Well,
Yeah,
he's
gone.
part of this alien thing.
Because he does technically get sucked back up before, remember?
Yeah.
You know, he's like, no, Peter, no.
Okay, I'll give it to you.
No, the bomb does not work at all. We've talked about this at all. If Harry wanted to really kill Peter, why isn't he whipping out those skeleton bombs from the first movie? All it takes is, oh look, Peter's on his bike, turn him into a skeleton. Good, now I'm gonna go fucking sleep with MJ. Like, he's like, the goblins really don't really think about what weapons they're using. They just kind of go.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about Harry hooking up with MJ. What do you guys think of that?
Which hook? I guess Amnesia one. It seems.
I'm thinking, let's start with Amnesia one.
It's really quick. It's really fast. It seems like MJ's doing it just because she's mad at Peter.
Yeah,
so like,
I took it as MJ and Peter. They didn't break up. They just had like a little fight.
They were on a break. They did, and then
did they say that?
No. I'm just thinking like a French joke.
Assumption.
Yeah, and
I took it as they were still together. So it was like, whoa, MJ, slow down.
And she's the one that kisses Harry. It's not Harry. Right, she goes in and Harry.
But then Harry gives her like fuck me eyes right there.
For sure. But at the same time,
James Franco.
At the same time, he gives a lot of weird eyes because when he's talking to Peter in the diner at one point, one eye's like winking at him, and then the other eye's fully open. I'm not sure anyone's noticed. I've noticed every time I've watched it.
You think that's just a James Franco thing?
Maybe, but like
his eyes happens. Are kind of squinty sometimes.
Yeah, so I think it's very fast. I think it's. I don't know, the camera.
It's honestly the time it takes to make one omelet.
Yeah.
Well, half an omelet.
Half an omelet.
And I feel like even though Harry is like, oh, I know nothing, blah, 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 I think he clearly. I don't know. Okay, so at one point, when he's in the doctor's office, my theory is he. When are we thinking, I'll ask you two before I go on my rant here. When do you guys think his memory's knocked back to?
I think it's obviously back to
Specific point from the movies. That's what I mean.
I think he gets it all back pretty much.
It's strange
I
because
feel like it feels like it goes all the way back to Spider-Man 1, where it's like him and Peter are like first fighting over MJ, like who's gonna go.
that's right. I feel like
I could easily see it being like the start of the movies where we see it. Right?
there's a contradiction, which I'll get into later. But so at one point, he's in the doctor's bed, and he's like, "Oh, I remember I was falling," and he looked at Peter and MJ, and then he's like. And then he said, like, "Oh, I was falling down." But I thought he was going to say that I was falling in love with MJ. Because every scene we see with Harry and MJ after that, he's constantly, like, unknowingly, maybe to him, putting the moves on her. Yeah. He's always talking her up. He's talking to her. He's like, "Oh, I wrote you a play." Yeah. You don't say that to your fucking best friend's girlfriend. Well, actually, and then he reads her the play. Like, he was 100% like...
I think he takes it back to Spider-Man 2 when they were dating. Like,
no, they were dating Spider-Man 1.
Was it Spider-Man 1?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So when they just, like, maybe broke up.
Here's the contradiction, though. When Harry gets home and sees a picture of his dad, he says, "I really wish I remembered my father." So what the fuck is his amnesia? His amnesia is he is back to Spider-Man 1, but he remembers nothing at all. Not even from a kid. He remembers nothing. This is the strangest amnesia I've ever heard of, where you can have short-term and long-term. You don't, remember, you don't remember 20 years of your life except for one person. Maybe you do. If you do, let me know. But, I think that's a rare case. It felt very strange. I just don't remember anything about my dad. And even then, he could, because in Spider-Man 1, he doesn't know his dad's a goblin. So he could just remember that, oh, hey, I loved my dad. We had a rocky relationship. How about this then?
Okay, so, because he distinctly has that moment again where he gets, the flash of his dad speaking in his... the back of his mind.
What are you doing?
And he has taken some sort of, I guess the juice that
he took the gong juice.
So maybe you think it's that? Is that the connection then?
What do you mean? That for some reason blocks it out of his memory.
Well, that because he obviously still has that in his body even after the fight scene, and so maybe he gets a that trigger, and then he just remembers it then, and clearly they both are connected through that special juice as well.
Even though the second one, they're not. My rant last time. He's still having these conversations again. Yeah. My thing is, too, with the juice, I love it. Seems like Harry...
I don't remember what it's called. It's just called the juice now.
I think it's just the Oscorp formula. I think it's actually some version of the Super Soldier Serum that Cap gets.
Oh, cool.
Willem Dafoe, when he takes it, he nearly dies. Harry, when he takes it, he just walks out of that chamber like a badass, and that's it. And I do like that we got to see that scene of him taking the gas, but I love that he was just badass. He just walked out, no problems, no fake CPR needed on him. That's what happens when you're young, I guess. But I think the amnesia love thing was I didn't like it because it was just the whole time it was none of the love story was needed. The love thing was really. And I liked them one too. None of it was really needed. Because the second he remembers, it turns around to just him choking MJ, you're gonna do something for me. So it's not even oh, I've fallen for her again and I need to kill Peter and there's this weird thing. It's just no, he's bad again. So it felt like that whole chunk in the middle, it literally means nothing. It means nothing.
It's just to play with between Peter and MJ.
Yeah, but even then...
It's just obviously it's quite lazy. It's just okay, now is the time when he remembers what happened. But up until this point, he didn't, and we can... I don't know, it's just
good reflexes, man, when he catches the ball and the thing. Yeah. Which I don't understand. First day of the hospital, oh, I got you a gift. You're going to play fucking basketball first day of the hospital? The guy who just, has a major concussion, has amnesia?
Okay, that's a little nitpicky.
I don't think...
Because that's a memento of their friendship, more so than just a physical object.
But then Peter's hey, look, quick... what if he said, hey, quick, what if his reflexes were not that good and he just fucking steamrolled Harry in the head? I'm sorry.
True, he shouldn't have thrown it at him. I'll give you that. But I don't think the gift is bad. I think the fact that he throws it at him and, quite violently too, and he knows that he has super strength, so it's...
I like how he's playing basketball in the house as well, too.
Yeah, they're playing pass, oh, good one, buddy. That was my thing. If you guys go to the hospital and I know you guys have amnesia and a huge head injury, I'm not going to be here's a ball.
I hope you do that. A ball with your name on it, not mine. I'm giving
your name.
Oh, God.
I thought it said Parker, and he's here, I have something for you.
Yeah.
The one thing I'll say that I liked about that storyline is when they're in, I guess it's... Where do they make the almond? Is that at
Harry's house?
Okay, so at Harry's house, they're
food. We're having a guest. A guest?
Right.
Yeah, a guest. A guest? yes, just come on, get us some food. That was a real scene.
Yeah, it was a real scene. And, wait, very quick question. Is that like, I guess Butler? He wasn't in the first two, right?
He is. He's
Is it the
just
same
older.
actor?
I think so. I think he's just looking
Okay.
older. Which I have a big thing to talk about the Butler, but we'll save
Well,
that.
I think I have the same thing. But yeah, anyway, so they're making their omelet and stuff like that. And the one thing I like about that scene is they're talking, and yeah, the play, it is weird of him to say, hey, I made you this play in grade 12.
Mm-hmm.
Very strange. And there's a lot of callbacks to grade 12, even though, I mean, obviously these people look like they're like...
Well, I think grade 12 was the beginning of the movie.
Right.
Of Spider-Man 1.
Yeah. So...
Yeah, I guess technically, yeah, they just feel all, but that was graduation year, technically, right? So they're calling back to, like, a little, now we need a prequel of grade 11, you know, we gotta see.
I think it... Oh, God, no. Actually, no, I'm down for more Toby. Let's do it.
But not young actors playing them. Bring them back now, almost in their late 40s.
And you have to consider that he's not Spider-Man. It's just Peter Parker.
Yeah.
There's no superheroes in this movie.
15-year-old.
It's purely a drama.
That'd be
It's a rom-com.
like American...
it's 12 Reasons Why.
Hot American Summer style.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
that's what
that's
they
true
should do.
too.
Like,
Yeah,
all the
yes.
adults just playing a young age. I'd be so down. Netflix, make it happen. You and Marvel, you're a partner now.
That'd be a lot of fun.
You know the fanboys would watch it.
Alright, I'll get to the point I was trying to make. So, they're obviously reading through this play, and it's like kind of weird, but you know, it's kind of funny little scene. But I like how later he like kidnaps MJ and then forces her to, I guess, like break up with Peter. So I like that dynamic. You know, he was getting her to read this play, and then he's getting her to act that that she's breaking up with Peter. So I thought that was like, from like a movie standpoint, like that was a nice little moment.
That's where I liked him, like, being the sneaky maniacal guy and like twisting, like being the puppet master, and that's what I really liked, which I thought could have been more. Like, in a better movie, we could have not amnesia, and maybe he knows there's problems between Peter and MJ. No, you know what? I'm gonna try to get at MJ to get at Peter, and I like that he was like behind the scenes doing stuff, and when he's clapping, he's like, bravo, like, that's the movie I wanted. I wanted it about them and Harry. Like, I liked Harry.
Yeah,
I liked when he
there's only
ambushed her
one
in her
scene.
house.
There's only, I think, like one, maybe two scenes where Harry has his memory back, and he's like messing with Peter, and I think that could have been like really good.
It's only two. It's when it's with MJ in the house, and it's the breakup scene, and then right after that,
scene?
and then the cafe scene's great, so good.
So
and then
I think
Peter
that
kills him.
That could have been a really fun dynamic where Harry knows everything that went on, but he was like fucking with him for a bit longer. I don't know, like there could have been something up there.
Pretending he had amnesia would have been great. Imagine.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. Like he realized. The whole time.
Yeah.
Oh, I
know that face. That's what me and my friends.
I almost wasn't sure if that's because when Peter comes to the hospital, like James Franco, the way he's acting that, it almost looks like
he's acting
he
really
still
goofy.
knows everything that's going on, and he's just like fucking with him. But then obviously he does actually. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe he actually never had amnesia.
I think he did because he has those flashes.
I think he did too. But I mean,
that's why I had to bring up one quote in the hospital. Me and my friends, we've notoriously watched this movie, and we've said this. This is still a line we say to each other once in a while. Me and Jeff specifically. When MJ walks in the hospital, and like James Franco is like really goofy amnesia, he's just like, I know that face, and he's like laughing, and he's like pushing them, and it's like, it's so cringeworthy, but I loved it. Like, one of my favorite moments. A plot hole for Eddie Brock. Remember in Spider-Man 1, they said, we're trying to get pictures of Spider-Man, and he's been on it all week. In this movie, this is the first time J. Jonah Jameson and Robbie meet Eddie Brock. Doesn't make much sense, that little nugget Easter egg in Spider-Man 1 anymore now.
Interesting.
Totally forgot about that. So is it they? Different writers. Makes sense.
Same director.
They forgot.
Yeah.
They forgot what happened in his other movie.
I'm trying to think of anything else because I know we're gonna do a few.
Do you think they write these movies like rewatch the first one and second one, or do they already have the third one planned out when they do the second one?
They probably know they might know like where they want to go.
Yeah. And
they might have some general like storyline ideas, but obviously a lot of times it seems like obviously like he didn't want Venom there, but then ended up in the movie and stuff like that.
In the media for Spider-Man 2, Sam Raimi and Tobey Maguire talked a lot about that they really wanted Sandman. And that happened. So I honestly think most of their thinking ahead back then was who's going to be our villain.
Right.
I think that's probably
just like
about
a classic storyline.
Yeah, like what could we do, and then maybe we'll get to that. Where it's not like MCU where they've planned out to 25th. They've planned out to when we're dead. You know, like they've planned everything. Like I think this was kind of like, let's just see how this does. Let's go along, and you know. So yeah, I don't think they plan it that much.
Oh, I have a quick quote from Peter to Eddie. I think this is when, maybe when Eddie first gets that photo, and he says, "I'm gonna put some dirt in your eye."
Yeah.
A funny, weird little line. Very weird thing to say.
There's a lot of weird little lines.
That was like almost like Dark Peter at that point.
Almost. Man, I love Dark Peter. So good.
We'll get into. Don't worry, folks. If you're like, why aren't they talking about the elephant in the room? We're building up to. Don't worry. That sounds like that bread and butter. Talking about the weird little lines. That's why I had the little ass intro when they have that fight. Peter and Franco, or Peter and Harry. At one point, he kicks Harry down. Harry's like bleeding, and he's like, "I protected you all of high school, and now I'm gonna kick your little ass." And then Toby goes, "Ooh." And then later on he says, "Oh, Gom Jr.'s gonna cry." That's where for me the dialogue was like, this is not right. Like this seems very strange. Like
yeah, Peter wouldn't say it. He wouldn't say those.
Well, because he's supposed to be evil Peter, right?
Okay, yeah.
The only evil Peter thing that really works that feels like the comic books and the animated series is when he's talking to his tenant, and his tenant's like, rent, and he's like, "I'll get your rent when you fix this goddamn door!" Like, but that felt like animated when he gets mad, right?
Yeah.
And then that was the only point. The rest of it feels, which we're going to get to soon.
Funny, quick side story, but you know that meme that's been going around, the shooting star meme? Obviously, we have one of Travis, Traveling Travis.
Oh, yeah, right.
I saw one the other day of Spider-Man, and it's really poorly cut because it's like, it's the first scene when... In the first Spider-Man, when he first goes on the web and he first goes off that building, and the way they cut it is just so horrible. But anyway, they put that line in there of, "I'll get you your rent when you fix this goddamn door." They just put that in a silhouette in the bottom of the video. You guys should search this. Search Shooting Stars Spider-Man. It's actually the funniest one of that meme. It's so good.
Right after you fix this goddamn door. He's a good boy. Something is wrong. I like that. And their cop talk was alright. I had a joke that Sandman looked a lot like the Mummy in this movie when he was like a big sand guy. He looked like Brendan Fraser, like that kind of money.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of some more. Oh, I really, really like when. So we talked about it a little bit, but when he's going to propose and he's waiting for MJ and he's sitting there, he's like, "What's?"
Oh, he's doing his classic pep talk.
He's acting. He's like, "I can't." He's like, "What? What's that in your glass? How'd that get in there?" "No, don't cry." Like that was so good.
So good.
And I'm like, this is why I love Toby. Like that scene is, and that's
because they have that same sort of scene in the other movies when he's walking behind her and he's thinking about what to say.
Yeah, and this is good because this is the point where it's showing he is talking to himself, but he does have a bit more ego when he's like, "Oh, don't cry." Like, how'd that get in there? Like his delivery of it is perfect. I had to put that in there because I burst out laughing every time I see Toby's smiling face going, "How'd that get in there?" Love it. Love you, Tobey Maguire, all day long.
Toby.
Yeah, how did we feel? We haven't talked about it much before we get into because we still got to talk about Bad Peter and we got to talk about the butler because I think I know what you're saying. How do we feel about Aunt May in this movie? I feel like she's very, very minor anything about her compared to 1 and 2. Mm-hmm. She has that pep talk about Uncle Ben and her going to the beach and her denying him the first time, but other than that,
I think she doesn't really need a big role in this.
No.
I feel like it's fine for her just to be a minor character and kind of just to come in because at this point, Peter's already been living out of home for a while, so I imagine she's kind of used to him coming, every once in a while to come to visit, but she's used to being on her own. So I feel like it was fine. I didn't really have an issue with it.
Yeah.
I actually liked all of her lines. Mm-hmm. I would say she was very very minor character, but obviously we talked about already how there's probably too many storylines. So I think from that perspective I'm fine, but I actually really liked all of her dialogue. I thought she was I would say thought she was great in this movie. She just wasn't in it a whole lot.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to bring that up. I brought up earlier, but at one point Spider-Man, after he fights Sandman the first time, he goes, "Oh, where all these guys come from?" It's kind of strange because he knows where they all come from. He knows Norman, he knows Doc Ock. So they try to drop it in a comic book way, but it's when you really break it down, you're like, You know where all these guys
You've
come
only
from.
fought like two or three guys.
Yeah, so it makes me think that there's stuff missing. You know, there's that Netflix series we're gonna get. This is when we talked about in Spider-Man 1 a bit. After he finds out about Uncle Ben's real killer and everything like that, MJ comes over to talk to him. They're having problems, but she says a line, she says, you don't want to do something that you'll regret, like with that other guy. And Peter says, he had a gun on me and he stumbled back. So, and he said it wasn't my fault. So that was, we talked about that before. Did he kill him? Did he not? But
He killed him.
They definitely killed him. Like, I forgot what the exact line was, but he definitely killed him in this one. And he pretty much tried to kill Sandman again, but he was evil.
Yeah.
But yeah, he definitely, that was kind of confirmed. They still don't use, like the animated series, they don't use the word kill, but they really imply, like, you don't want to do something you regret, Peter, you know? So, we didn't have talked about it. I thought the score was really good, because at one point when Peter gets taken over by the symbiote, and it does that thing where it zooms out of his eye, and it's quiet, and it's just this, like, dun-dun-dun-dun-dun, and it's like an evil kind of version of the Spider-Man theme.
Yeah.
I really like that, and I think the score was still really good.
That's something we talked about in the first two Tobey movies, is the music's always been pretty good. So.
Yeah, I agree as well, too. Even the cooking scene, just the song of, like, just doing the twist. For me, it was a lot of fun just seeing them cook, you know, having a lot of fun. And that, I guess, just in that moment of just MJ and Harry, like, having a good time. So I felt like it didn't really take away that this was, like, a popular song. It was just more of, like, kind of a fun moment.
Yeah.
And the song that plays when Bad Peter is strutting his stuff.
We're gonna get there.
Actually, to be honest, I really like the jazz music.
Yeah.
But, like, just the way... We'll get there, but, you know.
The Sandman train fight, I like the moment when he puts Sandman's face up against the train and it's like...
grinding it down.
Yeah. I like when Franco sees his dad again, Harry, and he drops a line that he has to attack his heart. It's kind of like a playback to the first one. He gives him the exact same speech. Well, I was going to ask you this, because we talked about the Peter and Harry fight. What was Peter's motivation going in that fight? Because my thing is, at this point...
What fight?
The second fight.
Is it because he saw MJ and Harry together?
Well, no, Harry says, I'm with her and everything like that. And he's kind of alright about it. Well, I guess he does that weird smile and he disappears. But, like, Peter is mad. He puts on the black suit back. So what was his motivation? And he's talking with Harry, and Harry says that, her lips tasted like cherry or something. Like, he's being a little like an asshole. But, like, right now, in the movie world, MJ has just left Peter for Harry.
Yeah.
So, at this point, in Peter's mind, he feels this justifies him going over to murder Harry.
I don't think
isn't this Bad Peter?
I don't think
he was
his
good.
intention at first.
He was good, and then he put on the bad suit.
Because it made him
but that still makes him, like, kind of evil and just do things.
But why did he put on that suit? He still has the good suit. We learned that later, remember?
I feel like he puts on that good suit the bad suit, because it makes him more... He feels, like, stronger with it.
Yeah.
So, like, he wants to... Because, you know, just beforehand, the first fight that...
with Sandman.
Pardon me?
With Sandman?
No, with Harry.
Oh.
At the beginning, like, Harry kind of, like, beat him up pretty good.
But why is he going over there expecting a fight? Like,
Because he's
just, like, being ready, right?
I think he wants to fight him because he's mad that Harry took his girl.
I guess, but that's...
Wouldn't you be mad if, like...
Yes, but Peter is already... He's gonna go fight he still thinks Harry has amnesia, so he's gonna go over there and fight amnesia Harry with the black suit. Like that's the part that seems a little fucked up to me.
I think he knew something was up when.
That's what I think, but it wasn't really clear.
Yeah.
Because Harry's allowed to wink at Peter, but
No. I felt like he knew something was up.
Okay.
Once he winked at, was being really weird.
I'll give you that.
Even when Peter's spilling on his whole soul. He's like, I really like MJ. I was gonna marry her. And James Franco's so good.
I'm the guy.
Yeah, I think
cool.
He probably always, or pretty much always, leaves his house with his suit on. And I guess he just put that one on because he feels better in it. And then obviously we find out later that being in that suit makes him not think so straight and makes him a little more aggressive. Well, that's a line they say later, is that symbiote just increases aggression.
Connors drops that.
Good old Connors.
Yeah, there's a line during the middle of that fight. He says, if you want forgiveness, take up religion. That was quite the line. Wow. Just had to throw that in there. Okay, we're at the moment now. I have other notes, but it's all after this. We're pretty much at the point in the movie where he's blown up Harry, and he's just gone full Peter.
He's got a new haircut.
Peter. He has a new haircut. He didn't even get it cut. He just got it pushed
He
down.
just put some grease on it. Yeah.
And put some eyeliner on as well.
Oh, definitely. Some
Offsee, this has been a
Definitely some
Offsee, this has been a joke for years. People talked about it. It's a big meme. It's everything. What do we think about watching this again in context from the montage and then the jazz club
I
scene?
thought it was absolutely hilarious.
It is hilarious.
Is it good? No way. I just thought
No.
it was like super cringy and really funny. Like just the way he's walking around the street and just like
So
bopping along and just like points at ladies and they're all like, "What the fuck's wrong with you?" Like,
And when he
Well,
gets
at
out,
first,
he's
like,
like,
he's walking, like, all the girls are, like,
yeah,
checking
they're
him out.
yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like, he
They're
gets a
very
little
weird.
too cocky, and then, like, they're all like, who...
Mhm.
but it's strange because that happens.
Yeah.
So it's like they're looking at him. I don't think they're looking at him in a good way. I still think they're looking at him
I
like
think at the
strange.
first time they were looking at him in a good
See,
way.
I don't
It did.
think so.
No, I
Oh,
think so
for
too.
sure.
Okay, but either then, they're
It
looking
might
at
have
him,
just been one or two.
It was
but-
only a couple.
they're looking at him in a good way, and then the next scene is them looking at him in a bad way,
Oh,
and then the next scene is him like putting the moves on Betty Brant in the like Elizabeth Banks in the
Right.
in the office, and it felt very strange that like
Isn't that the line where he's like, "I'd love to shoot you sometime"?
yeah, and she's like,
Yeah.
oh Peter, like like it was very strange that like one moment girls really liked him and one they didn't, and then he got his black suit and everything like that, and then I liked his little exchange with Jameson where he's like, I'm in the staff job and double the pay, and then when he
Sits
like
in his-
when he
his
sits in
seat.
the chair and puts his feet up, and James was just like, that was the only good montage part for me. Like it was, I agree.
Yeah.
On a comedy scale, it's hilarious and great, but on a scale of like you think back to the first two Spider-Mans, it's like this really, and that really kills the
it
movie.
seems like a joke almost.
Yeah, like it to me, the movie takes a big nose in the moment. Like when he's with the neighbor talking about the cookies and the nuts, like
Oh,
the whole
yeah,
thing.
Yeah, that was so
And
dumb.
that girl's back into it again. I guess she's like the super minor character of just like
yeah.
I don't understand her motive. She's just like in love with. I feel like she's in love with Peter,
Well,
but
oh,
she
yeah.
knows that MJ's there.
He's the boy next door.
I guess the second one I got the vibe she really liked Peter, but at the beginning of this movie she's like, oh MJ, she feel like she's put them together. But the second they're single, she's like all up in there, so it's my chance. I do like in a comedy sense when he's talking to Connors and he like pretends to fall asleep.
Yeah.
Like it was like that is bad. The jazz club scene is
It's so
on
funny.
another level, which I have in my trivia notes.
So funny.
Took 2 weeks to film. 2
What?
weeks, you guys are never gonna get back.
Yikes.
So it starts with, let's break this down. It starts with him, so Gwen, he's taking Gwen on a date,
Yep.
and while they're walking to the club, we get a
Yeah.
shot of Eddie Brock staring at them. He's just following them. He's like,
The
oh,
jazz club that MJ now works at.
mhm.
Yeah.
He
And
dropped,
doesn't know that.
before that though,
I
he
think
drops.
He knew that.
No,
Did
he
he?
knows
No.
that.
He knows.
He
that.
knows
He-
that.
Oh,
he
really?
knew that because Harry told her.
Yeah.
Her that she's working at a jazz club now.
Yeah, because she got
But that's-
dumped in a plane.
That's like
Yeah.
there's multiple jazz clubs.
I think
I
he
feel
went
like
there with the intent
intention.
because when she's
Okay.
like, "Oh, is that your ex?" He's like, "Oh yeah, I guess it is." Like
Yeah.
he's playing off like.
I took it as he didn't know, and then he just kind of rolled with it. But
Oh, no, I think
he
he
for
knew.
sure knew.
I can see that.
Before he goes in, he says some line of like, "You're looking good tonight, babe," and Gwen laughs, and he's like, "I like that little giggle you got."
Oh
there."
yeah, so good.
The dialogue is so fucking like skin crawly, cheesy. If you're looking at it from a serious perspective, if you're having a fun time, it is. You laugh. I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh my god!" And then they get in there.
Oh,
And that happens where it's the scene of like, is that your girl? Yeah. And he's like, give me a moment. He gets on the piano. Apparently Black Suit Spider-Man means you can learn how to play the fucking piano.
Of course.
He says, this one's for you, looking right at MJ. Gwen doesn't really question this at all. Like,
I thought she didn't really hear that, or because
I
she's a
don't-
little far away.
he's looking right at him though while he's playing the piano. Peter then jumps up. He says, double time. He jumps up. The band goes just along with him.
Yeah.
I want to see the version where they say double time and it's just dead silent. He jumps up. He's walking on people's tables and trays. He's grabbing wine. He's drinking everything.
it's like Anchorman all over again.
Oh yeah, he jumps down and then he says the immortal warlords take home this, and he starts snapping and he starts gyrating, and then he brings Gwen up and they start dancing and they do all this big dance and everyone's staring, and then he dips her in front of MJ, and that's the moment where Gwen is like, "Oh, you did this all for her? Like, I'm sorry." She breaks down. You never see Gwen again, and then
That is the last thing we see Gwen.
no, it's not. It's the second last scene. There's a random scene. We'll bring it up at the
Okay,
end.
yeah.
Super random. And then before you guys go, MJ's upset. She goes to the bar. Peter walks up. Hey. He's just like, hey. And then the guy's like, oh, is there a problem? He starts beating up the security. I respect this because it shows how evil he was. It was by mistake. But like, for a PG-13 movie, he hits MJ. He
Yeah.
backhands her, which like I wish they would have leaned more into, not for domestic violence, just that was something like, oh, that's a bad act. Like, that's him being a terrible person, not just a fucking loser or, like, some emo. Like, only the door thing, and that was the only moments where, oh, he feels like an evil person. Where this just feels like he's just a bit more charismatic Eddie Brock, in my opinion. Like, he's the exact same guy. He's just a bit more of a loser. And then he storms out, and then that's when he decides, oh, something's wrong. So what do you guys think about this whole jazz scene in general? I think it's a fucking abomination, but it's very funny.
I think it's really bad, and it doesn't fit with anything from this whole trilogy, but I thought it was really funny, and I loved watching it.
For myself, it was cringeworthy the whole time. Like, jazz, because I'm a huge jazz fan. I really like jazz, so, like...
Not anymore, you don't.
Not anymore.
No.
That's why, like, his character, like, and him, like, all about this jazz music, like, didn't, like, you know, jive at all.
If he's bad, he's jazz, you know?
At all. Like, I feel like if maybe...
No, he
like,
jived already.
yeah. Maybe, like, slick back hair and, like, look more like... If you were going for that jazz, like, thing...
Like Ryan Gosling a lot.
Yeah. It would have been great, you know? Like, and then he's getting a little more sleazy looking. But no, it was just a weird phase that they were doing. It just wasn't working. Actually, I have a line from that when they first go into the restaurant as well, too. And it's like, oh, busy. And he goes up to the waitress or, like, she whispers in her ears, like... Find us some shade.
Find us some shade.
and like,
and that,
oh my god.
That waitress is one of the worst extras too. Because when he says that, she's really mad. But then the next thing when she's like, Tish, like, here you go, guys.
I thought she was like very turned on by the whole thing.
I took it as she was like, oh, this guy's spicy.
If you look, she looks like she's mad.
Oh no, I think she's like,
she was
so into it.
I don't think so. That means she's not that good if we're debating about this. Because like,
she's into him.
She's
I
so
don't
into
think
it.
So.
Oh, it was great.
Find us some shade.
But yeah, no, it's just horrible.
Yeah.
Very bad.
Yeah, the bad scene, moral. That scene is immortalized. I just that's a, even 2007. It feels dated, but that's just a classic 2000 thing. Of they looked at it and it's like, this is what evil is. You know, I think this is what bad is, and it wasn't good then, and it's gonna age even more poorly as time goes on.
She just played My Chemical Romance while they were.
Oh really?
Oh yeah. He could have been a band member.
Yeah.
So we've talked a bit about it, but this one we got the church scene. We talked about the sound. I thought that was good. I don't like that. Like he kind of accidentally he happens to be at church and bumps into something. Like until then, but I like the actual scene of him ripping it off. It's very cool.
I feel like it's also kind of a stretch that he sees that it's Peter.
Peter?
Is that you? Is that I hear that scream before.
Yeah, maybe it's that.
I like that it's very similar to Venom Origins. Like think about the animated show. Like that's the exact same way. It was in the church.
Yeah,
Eddie just happened to be there and got lifted up.
Yeah.
I like that, and I like the actual thing of him stuck to the ground and he looks up. I don't like when he's just like he's already smiling and it's just like, oh, why are you smiling? You have no reason. Like you don't know what's on you. And he's just like I know it's supposed to be like this power, but just like you don't need this. And the church scene's good. And then soon after that, we get the weird Venom and Sandman meet up. I don't understand what happens.
How do they even meet up again?
Sandman's in an alley. Venom's swinging throughout the city. He sees his shadow, and he punches him, and he's like, come here, Spider-Man. And then Venom's like, ah! And then he's like, that's a sound.
It's actually very accurate.
He throws him against the wall. He's like, ah. And then he calls him Flint, and he's just like, I guess he's been following the news, but he knows everything. He's like, yeah, I know about your daughter, and like I know about Spider-Man and you. It's just like, how the fuck do you?
I mean,
know all
he
this?
is like, he's a photographer, kind of.
He's not a reporter.
I feel
kind of.
This is the day and age where it's not we're all tuned into our phones, so it's like he really had to.
Oh no, like it was in the newspaper and everything as well too.
And he works there.
Yeah,
was the daughter thing though?
I imagine so.
Maybe
I don't know. It seems the whole meet cute is very strange.
No, it's very like it makes no. It's really bad. Like that's another one of those things where it just kind of happened to be. Like there wasn't really any reasons behind it.
In some versions of the script, Venom kidnaps his daughter and forces him to help him.
Oh.
I don't know if that's any better because it's still another forcing. I just feel like at any point that team up was going to be forced.
That could have been better. It would have been hard. They would have had to do it right, obviously. But that could have worked.
We glossed over something. We glossed over something. What did you guys think about Eddie Brock's Photoshop controversy? You know, like him forging the photos of Spider-Man with the.
I feel like that's a thing he would do.
Yeah, I like that when Peter finds out he has all these like scribbles over it, and then he slams it against the wall, and Joe's like, "What's going on?" And he's just like, "Oh, we're horsing around." It's like, once again, why do adults just horse around in this world? Like, he broke a fucking picture frame, and like, so I thought that was, it was all right. We just didn't really talk about it.
Just horsing around.
Yeah,
that's pretty much what we do on the Geekverse,
Yeah. So here's a scene which another one we'll talk about. I know Dylan, I think you're about to say. On the news, Sandman and Venom, they're taking over New York. Spider-Man, Peter knows, I can't do this alone. So he goes to his friend Harry. One we can talk about, I don't really know why, because at this point I don't feel like he should be like, I couldn't find Harry. Goes to Harry. He's looking like a fucking cat person. His face is fucked up. Healed miraculously over days. But like you said, maybe it's the Goblin formula. So we'll give it a pass. Still, he's healed. Not looking the greatest. He gives a speech about, hey, we need... This is, again, he gives a speech about MJ really needs us. I still was unclear of how Harry felt about MJ, because he put her life at risk at one point in this movie. Like, if he's choking her and holding her by the throat, I'm going to question how you feel about a person, But this was like
I think that's probably one of those things where, obviously, right at that point in time, Harry has two sides to him. Like, there is probably deeper down still the Harry that he's best friends with. Yeah. But then, obviously, there's, like, the Goblin Harry. Mm-hmm. And I think that was more so just, like,
trying to get
almost like a Hail Mary. Like, I have no reason not to go and say, hey, help me, save MJ. Because, obviously, deep down, Harry does care about MJ. And also, like, I don't probably still loves her at this point.
Spider-Man knows anyone else that could help him.
Aunt
May. He could use her as a martyr, probably. That's about it.
Maybe he could fish out
Dr. Connor.
Turn this lizard. No, he could fish Doc out from the sea.
You know what he could have done? He could have gone once again and kidnapped Flint's daughter. And said, hey, I'll trade you. Trade you MJ for Flint's daughter. Too. Venom wouldn't care. He'd kill everyone. So, I think it made sense.
So then this scene proceeds. He asks Harry.
But fuck how the rest of the scene goes.
He asks Harry for help. Harry just kind of says no, and then Peter goes off. We have a scene that even as a child, this was another thing when I watched it. This stuck out like a sore thumb. He's in Norman's lair. He's looking at everything broken. Harry's fucking butler comes up, and he talks to him and he says, "I loved you and I loved your father, but when I cleaned the wounds of his dead body, I knew that it was from his own glider and his death was self-inflicted." 100% he doesn't know 100%, but for the plot, that's what happened, so he does know that. Like, what happened if Spider-Man took the glider and fucking stabbed him? But let's say whatever, take that out. That's just a fun nitpick thing. So...
Quick question, does the butler know that Peter is Spidey?
He must now, because Peter was just standing there talking with his mask on, right?
Okay. So he knows everything. Yeah.
But at this point, he goes, your father died his own hand. He could have saved these people so much trouble, so much fighting, so much time if he would have told Harry about this 2 fucking movies ago. If I was Harry, I'd be like, half my face is missing. You could have told me this the second you saw me in that lab, or the second the butler walked in that morning when that mirror was broken. He should be like, oh fuck, I gotta tell Harry because I love him so much. I should tell him, hey, your dad was kind of a fucked up guy, and I think it was his fault. I think he was the Goblin. I think he was killing people, and I don't think it was Spider-Man's fault. But he waits, that expression to the 9th hour, he waits to the 19th hour to tell Harry, by the way, I think your dad was a pretty bad dude. Hate that. This butler comes out of nowhere just like...
The other problem with it, too, is that I forgot that this butler was in the first 2 movies. Like, he's a very, 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 very minor character.
Yeah.
And in this movie, too, like, I guess he has the one scene where he's like, oh, get me some food, and he's there. But, like, the fact that that's, what finally changes Harry's motivations, especially with that character, we've known him for 3 movies now. He's quite a ride as a character. Yeah. And so for it to be that random-ass dude, to me, like, that he might as well be some random-ass dude who, like, eventually gets Harry to change sides, and obviously it makes no sense. Why wouldn't you have done it like 2 movies ago exactly? Yeah, that was really dumb. Like that was another one of those really lazy story points where it's like, is that all you got? Like,
and
is that the best way you could connect these 2 storylines?
They try when they're like, I love you so much and I love your father. Like they try and build this really quick connection.
Yeah, like if they obviously they weren't thinking down the road. This isn't like the current day MCU, but that character, he could have been in the first 2 movies. I don't even know what the fuck his name is. He probably doesn't have a name. It's probably just Harry's butler.
That's why I asked the question, like, did they, like, just make the 3rd movie based on, like, watching the first and 2 movies and then, like, going off the 3rd? Because I feel like if they just watched the first and second and be like, okay, this is, like, there's kind of this pattern, like, maybe we'll just keep following that. Mm-hmm. Because obviously these are new, like, they're the same directors, but, like, No, they're writing. It's just to make sure like it's a lot more like plot continuity. Continuity. Thank you.
Continuity.
And I think that would have been
Something's funny.
made a lot of sense. But at this point, I think there was a flashback as well too, and it was Harry watching Spider-Man put down his dad's body and jumping out of the window. So it's like, how in that time did the butler clean the wounds and Harry not see like the guy?
No, you're missing one flashback, which is really cool. They obviously filmed it in Spider-Man 1. It was the lead scene. There's a scene of Harry holding his dead dad, and he's like crying and holding him by the head and going like this. So obviously they filmed that back in the day when that happened, and they just didn't use that footage. So yeah, he was the first one to see the body.
Yeah.
Same thing, like, did no coroner ever be like, hey, what did Spider-Man use to kill your dad? Like, what is these massive... I think you guys seen that goblin guy? It looks like those blades. It does... The whole thing's really awkward and doesn't make any sense. The reason I was asking, because I thought he had a name. He didn't, but you were wrong. He's not credited as Butler. He was in Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3. He's credited as Houseman.
Houseman. That sounds like a superhero. Sounds like a really, really bad superhero. I am Houseman.
Well, you heard for Spider-Man 6, he was supposed to be. He's like, oh, he didn't save Harry, So
he's the villain, and he's
he
the
can
villain.
throw House in the Netflix series. He can throw House.
He becomes Vulture in the next episode.
Oh wow.
So yeah, that Butler thing's fucking stupid.
Good old Houseman.
Houseman. Gotta give him his credit. The Houseman.
I'm sorry to the fans. He's not a butler. I shouldn't have said it. Yeah, he's Houseman.
Yeah, that was just so stupid. There's no justifying that whole thing. It was very lazy. Yeah. They should have, in my opinion. I don't try to be like, oh, I'm so much better of a thinker. They should have done this, but like, they should have had another scene of him talking with his dad in the mirror and him telling his dad off, like, no, I'm gonna help my friends. Mm-hmm. Like, you weren't there for me. Mm-hmm. I knew, and he could have been like, I found your fucking lair. Like, I know you weren't a good person. He could be like, you killed innocent people. I don't want to be you. I want to save my friends. I want to save the innocent people that are dying in New York right now. That would have been much more impactful, him breaking away from William Dafoe, than his butler being like, go get him, kid. Because William Dafoe comes back for this movie. Mm-hmm. It's much more minor than the second one. Yeah. And you can tell... The second one, they are in the same scene. You can tell this is like CGI and he was on set because he looks very strange in the mirror this way. Like, he just looks a little glossy, but he came back to film scenes for it. So they clearly, to me, that would have been the breaking point of him separating from his dad. But nope. That's
never had that.
Nope. On that point, it sucks. I wish it was in a better movie. The payoff and the setup for it is not the greatest. But because we've been with these characters for so long, I still got a kick out of seeing Harry and Spider-Man team up at the end to fight Venom and Sandman. I like seeing them on the glider together and be like, go get her, buddy. Like, I like that, and I think in a better movie, that could have been a great moment. People would have been like, man, we're seeing like Harry as Gollum and Peter coming like a villain and a hero. I almost wish that Spider-Man 3 would have been the Harry as a villain story, and 4 would have been a redemption of like that moment of like in a future movie of him coming around and helping Peter. I think all in one movie it was too quick, but I liked seeing them together, working together, and it tied together because he gets to be there for his death and everything like that. And I like that, and Harry sacrifices himself for him. So at the end of the day, they got back. I think they never really. It's strange at the end of Spider-Man 2. It felt like he's gonna be the villain, and I thought when they got to Spider-Man 3, like, but we don't really want him to be the villain. We want them still to be best friends. So this movie really brought back to, oh, we're each other's best friends, So, which is very strange, because 2 does not feel like that at all. It feels like, oh, he hates Peter now. But this movie ends with him giving his life for him. So, I like seeing them team up. I thought it was good.
I'll agree with that.
Yeah.
I actually, what do you guys think of the final battle scene in general?
I kind of like it. I think it's better than a lot of other battles. I like that it's different. It's usually Spider-Man versus one guy. I liked the team up dying.
2-on-2,
yeah. I like that Sandman's a very big, different villain. So we got the Godzilla sort of, taking him out by his arms. And I like when it's dead silent and he's about to, like, kill Spider-Man and the gun bomb just hits him in the throat. He's like, oh, and then it blows up. Like, I like that. Venom's a little iffy, like, because he just disappears a lot. I wish him and Spider-Man got to fight a lot more, like, one-on-one. They have that cool thing when they're falling down and fighting. I like that. Not the only thing, but this is the problem when we talk about the romance being again. One of my biggest problems is, again, MJ is in peril at the end of this movie. We've done it. That's one of my biggest problems with Spider-Man 3 is it just feels like we've done all this stuff before. We've done the Peter and Mary, will they, won't they? We've done Mary's in trouble. Green Goblin.
Mary?
Jane. Yeah, they kidnap Green Goblin kidnaps her in the first one. The second one, Doc Ock kidnaps her, and it's just like, again, she gets kidnapped. It was so lazy. They used her screams from Spider-Man 2, so they didn't even put that much effort into it. That's my trivia section. They just recycled her screams. So I like it, other than a few like repetitiveness, and I like Harry, redeeming himself. And when I saw that, I think it was the first time I cried in a theater seeing Harry died. I still made me choke up a bit because I like those characters. So I'm like, oh, it sucks. This guy's losing his best friend, Yeah. So, what about you?
I just don't. I liked it enough. I think Sandman. Like, I still don't really know how he did get defeated. Like, he took a couple bombs.
I think if you go back earlier when the cops were shooting him, it was like disintegrating him. Like, it was making him like weaker.
But he's a lot bigger now.
He just kind of disappears, though.
He kind of disappears. That's kind of what the
Harry
throws the pumpkin bombs at him, though.
He does, but then he has a big burst of bombs that come from his glider and hits him in the gut. Is that like the
final blow?
And I'm pretty sure it blows up, and Harry like actually drives through him, like just to show that there's a hole in him, and then he collapses. So
I guess he doesn't actually die either. Like
no, it just like incapacitates him, and then he's just standing in a corner randomly. Later on, he comes up and he's just like, "I didn't want this," and it's like, man, my friends. I don't know why Peter's not going to hang out with Harry too. Like. Who gives a fuck about Sandman?
Yeah, so I thought, like, Sandman, up until that point, I really liked all his action scenes, but I maybe felt that was a little lackluster. Mm-hmm. And then I talked about earlier how I did like how Spidey ends up defeating Venom in the end with, like, making that little cage.
Yeah, very cool.
Up until that point, though, I didn't really like it. I was talking about earlier how I didn't think they made the creepy factor of Venom, like, that didn't come across very well. You're right that they just kind of did the MJ is in peril again, but at least they set it up at least that's why Harry's there, like, fighting with them.
True, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, even like once again, as we said earlier, the snowboard goblin,
new goblin,
new goblin. I guess it wasn't that cool. So seeing him in the final battle, he was decent enough. Yeah, I thought it was an all right fight. Nothing too good, but nothing too bad.
Yeah. Kyle?
I didn't think it was too bad. I liked how they were working together to defeat the Sandman and Villain. Oh my god.
Villain.
It's almost like Dylan.
No,
not
actually. And Venom, and how he like used the web slinger to like whip him and move him around, and even though like they're both dive bombing, he's like, "Can this thing go any faster?" And it's like, well, no.
Hang on,
why? Yeah. And then he jumps, and I think that was all pretty cool, and just how, like, again, it's just the thing about the special effects at this time. Like, it's still pretty good. I personally still think the Venom part was still kind of creepy. Just like the Venom mask itself, not like him turning into Eddie Brock.
You didn't find Eddie scary?
That's even scarier to me.
Those teeth.
Those teeth.
But otherwise, like, I liked it, so I didn't think it was too bad.
Mm-hmm. And then, Harry dies, there's a funeral. This is, Spider-Man 2 is actually the only movie not to have a funeral, so this adds to the even Amazing Spider-Man, if you think about them. They all have a funeral.
A lot of funerals, a lot of dead people.
Yeah, so 2 notes about that. Flash Thompson is at the funeral. I'm not sure if you saw him lurking in the background, but he was back for the funeral. And this is where I said, you do see Gwen again for some unknown reason, because she never fucking met Harry once in this movie, but she's at Harry's funeral.
Good point, yeah. There's probably
a subplot of a Peter, Harry, Gwen love triangle that they had to cut from this movie.
I also was about to say, there's probably something where they met and it got cut.
Yeah, so...
But they're like, we don't want to edit this again, so we'll leave her in there.
Yeah.
No one's going to pick up on that.
Very random, yeah. I've literally, because I know we're coming down on file notes, 3 quick pieces of trivia. At one point, I was considered they were going to split this movie into 2 films. Probably would have been better. I think they could have probably fleshed some stuff out more, not to worry about it.
We did have some questions.
Yeah. According to James Franco, they had to go back and do some reshoots prior to release because test audience felt there was not enough action in the film. So I bet that's where that fight scene with him and Peter came right in the middle of that movie, I bet.
Right.
And then Sam Raimi at the time was the first, well, not at the time, he's the first director to ever direct all 3 installments of the superhero franchise. Usually they leave after 2 or whatnot. He did it, and then Nolan did, and then a couple other people have. But at the time, he's the only first one to complete a trilogy. So, yeah. And the rest of the trilogy,
What were the other trilogies at the time? X-Men?
X-Men, yeah, Brian
Was X-Men
Singer
finished at that point?
It finished, the year before, but the director left before he finished it. So, yeah.
Cool.
Any other final notes we have here?
We got to everything I had.
Okay, Kyle, anything?
We have everything that I did as well too.
Before we do our score and our final thoughts, what did you think about this? Because we talked about this Amazing Spider-Man 2, that being the last one. What do you guys think about this? We've talked about the quality film, but just as a finale, because this is the wrap up to the Tobey Maguire, Sam Raimi, Kirsten Dunst, James Franco, that whole crew. This is the wrap up. This is literally the send off one. And we talked about Amazing Spider-Man 2, that even though you can tell more was planned and not everything feels fixed, there's a point of that movie where it feels like, oh, well, Spider-Man just ends up going off and doing stuff. You know, how do you guys feel about this one and the finale and the ending of the movie?
I feel like the ending didn't really feel like a finale. I felt like there was going to be something else more was happening. Like, I guess it just ends with the funeral.
I feel a complete opposite, because it ends with the jazz club, her singing and Peter walking in.
Oh, right, yeah.
She stops singing and they end up just dancing together.
Yeah.
And for me, it's kind of a perfect finale, because it just ends with kind of where it all started. This very first narration is him saying, this is a story about like a girl, or this is a story about one person, not just me, but a girl, and it's not just any girl. And I think it's kind of fitting that, there could be more sorrow down the way, but it ends with them dancing together, and it's just a shot of their two faces together. So I think for me, it actually kind of works. I would have loved to see more of them, but it works as like they've overcome the villains and they've overcome their problems, and now hopefully but now because this is the end, you can just in your mind say they're together forever and they're off happy.
I would say it's a pretty good ending as well, just because obviously Sandman flies off into the sunset.
Somewhere.
Eddie Brock dies. Harry and all the other villains are, I guess, gone. They all died pretty much.
Houseman is still out there.
Houseman, I really want to know what happens to him. But yeah, I guess
Harry told him
it's a pretty good. It's a pretty good
He's the
ending.
new goblin.
He probably does too. Actually. Well,
that's why he told him to go out there, because like if he dies,
oh yeah,
cha-ching.
Good point. That could be maybe he would have been a villain later. This guy's got some other intentions going on. But yeah, you're right. They did end like the Peter and Mary Jane storyline, and yeah, that is kind of like how it all starts too. So in that sense, it's a good ending. Aunt May, I guess she was at the funeral.
She was.
So you
get
to say bye to her.
Yeah.
Gwen, like her storyline ends like obviously it has potential to go other places, but it ends for its sake. And then Jameson, he's always the same.
He doesn't need it.
So yeah, it ends like obviously you can imagine Spidey going off fighting some more people in the future. But for the sake of this trilogy, like I want more personally, just because Toby is great. But for a trilogy, it was a good ending.
Yeah, I'm still pulling. I've talked about this many times. There's a storyline called the Clone Saga, and it's when Spider-Man meets a bunch of clones from the future. This and that. I'm still saying Marvel and Sony. Nothing would get people more excited if you did a Clone Saga movie, get Toby and Andrew Garfield. They can play, like, we'll get to, they do a 5-episode arc, I think, an animated series, and you'll see it's like, and it's really well done, because there's some Spider-Mans from Ultimate Dimensions and whatnot, and there's, like, actual Spider-Mans that aren't Peter Parker. There's, like, an Alex Riley one, I think, and there's a lot of them, but I'm really hoping that they do that one time as, like, a fan thing.
I could totally see Marvel doing that down the line, like, after they're done their Infinity War and whatever else they have like currently planned.
I hope
they're
not,
like looking for some ideas. Like that could be a really, really fun movie.
It's built in the story. It's not them creating a device be like, oh, we're get Toby back. And the day if they would announce like, oh, and even if it's not a huge role, if they had like if they're in a half an hour like climactic battle or something, like we got Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire coming back for one movie with Tom Holland. That movie, I think, would do gangbusters. People would be so excited. And you could see the set photos, all of them together in the costumes. Like,
that'd be sick.
Before Civil War happened, that was my one comic book. I was always campaigning and being like, this needs to happen, this needs to happen. Now that's happened, that's my next one. I want to see Clone Saga. I want to see them all together. Like, that has money written all over it. Because it's like, you get to see the Spider-Man from every generation of since they started. So Marvel, you're smart. You know, people, if you're listening to this, spread the word.
You could even throw the animated Spider-Man in there too.
Just an ad,
just in their world. That'd be fucking sick.
Final score, our scores, as you know, we give up thumbs up and thumbs down, or just thumbs or something like that, because with anime episodes start because they're 22 and we figure out we couldn't rate those. So we carry those over to the movies. I'm going to go a solid right in the middle. Not enough to put it down, but not enough to give it. I have a good entertainment time, but there's so much bad stuff like the emo Spider-Man, some problems that I can't give it a thumbs up. So right in the middle. It's not the worst comic movie of all time like it maybe was at one point. It's a fun watch. It completes the trilogy. I get to see Toby. It's the same way as Hugh Jackman and Wolverine Origins. It's an awful movie, but I get to see, that's one more performance of it. Hey, I get to see Hugh Jackman be Wolverine. Yeah, I get to see Toby. This is one of the 3 performances. Marvel will change that, but that's right now one of the 3 performances of Toby being Spider-Man. I still love him, and until we see Homecoming, he's still my Spider-Man. I think it's going to change because the age thing kind of works a bit better. Holland and whatnot. Holland seems like he's doing a good job, but Toby, no matter what, is always going to have a special place in my heart. That's who I grew up with, so right in the middle. Just a decent, fine film.
For me, I will give it, let's see. I'll give it a middle thumb as well, but slightly upwards. I'm thinking 20 to 30 degrees upwards.
We have so many variations on thumb ratings. We really adapted to it.
The reason for my 20-degree thumb is that this movie has a lot of flaws in terms of it being a movie and character development and pacing and just some things just happen for no reason whatsoever. And on this cast we're discussing why is that the case? Why did that happen? We just have to guess, right?
Houseman. But
I still enjoyed watching this movie. I thought it was fun. I'll definitely watch this movie again. Probably not in the next week or so, but next year I could see myself watching it. I think
I could see yourself watching it after Spider-Man Homecoming. If you're on if that's good and you're on Spider-Man hype, that happens to me a lot. It's I'm even watching the bad movies because I just want to see Spider-Man movies right now, you know?
But yeah, I like this movie. I had fun watching it. I think, some of the, even Dark Peter, as stupid as it is, I really loved watching it. I thought it was just hilarious. And then obviously just the special effects for the most part are really good in this movie, and the music is obviously still pretty iconic, I would say. Yeah. So overall, I will give it a 20-degree thumb up.
For myself, I liked it better than when before going into the movie, which was good, but I saw there's a lot of problems with it as well that we've already talked about before. I'm gonna give it a thumb in the middle, but
I thought you were gonna give it a thumb down.
20 degrees down. okay. Just because
perfect balance.
Yeah, just because I still don't really I was definitely taken out of the movie as well for a bit of it, and I was just kind of, I don't know, maybe I guess it was humorous, but it was it was so bad. It was, I guess it's I think
you're not laughing with it, you're laughing at it.
Yeah, I feel when you said I am Wrath, when we do our Netflix and Veil, that's a good way. It's just this is just so bad, but it's so good, but some of these lines are just awful, but it doesn't really make me feel I'm watching Peter Parker. The evil side is just these. I just felt it took me out of watching Spider-Man and watching a whole other movie.
I feel I'm watching not Spider-Man, I'm watching Taylor Field.
Yikes!
I feel Taylor Field would be that, that's how I imagine him. Outside of the cast, just walking down the street, doing the finger guns at people. Yeah, and I think he would. Well, awesome do finger guns. I think they're pretty similar.
But yeah, middle, 20 degrees down.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Well, folks, that was a good one. I think that's our longest, actually, retrospective, which makes sense. There's a lot to unpack with this movie. There's
a lot.
The amount of storylines in this movie, yeah. So, for us, we're done. That was it. We've watched every Spider-Man movie. But for you guys, luckily, you got Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 retrospectives that we did. Very different movies. After we've watched these again.
That's true, yeah.
Very different tone, very different editing and pacing, very different villains. Yeah, that's all I can say. But those are, you can either wait a couple more weeks. We're going to be releasing those in the month of July. Or if you want to get your hands on that salty goodness. I don't know why I said salty goodness, but it's a sweet goodness.
Spicy goodness.
You can go to Patreon and support us there. Not only you get that, you got Geek vs. Gauntlet episodes. I'm sure there's some madness happening right now. Who knows, because we film this months in advance, but I'm sure there's some madness going on there. There always is great gameplay. You got Netflix and Fail up there usually early, and probably something else. You never know what pops up there. But that's why he supports, because you get that sweet goodness. You can go to Facebook, or actually just go to our website, keeperspodcast.com. We got all the social media. We got all the podcast services.
And everything that you want will pop up.
YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you don't want to support us on Patreon, if you want to use that $1 for a Slurpee, I understand. But then give us a little like, that helps us out a lot. That helps us spread. It
helps us feel good too. Yeah. And if we feel good, we do better casts. We're just in a more positive mood.
Exactly. If we get dislikes, oh man, you're gonna hear it. We're gonna redo these casts and just shit on all the movies. But no, thank you very much for tuning in. You gentlemen have anything to say before we get out of here?
No, it's been a blast.
No.
Then we're gonna catch you on the web.
We'll catch you on the web. We're gonna say it together. You ruined it. We did it for every other movie, almost. We'll do it again. 3, 2, 1. And we'll catch you on the web.
And you'll find me somewhere... No. You'll find me in the shade.
Ah, yes.
Bundled